This is a business article, and the author reads and searches for information every day, as well as writes a book, just to write it truthfully. I will return to the world once again, and have the privilege of seeing the vastness of the Milky Way again. I stole the wine from dusk and took a sip from the darkness. Be an immortal for a moment, not greedy for eternity. A self-narration of a mentally ill child. Keywords of the novel. Fortunately, I have been reborn without a pop-up window. Fortunately, I have been reborn with a complete download of the TXT series. Fortunately, I have been reborn with the latest chapter for reading. Chapter 1. Driver Xiao Li comes to pick me up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Driver Xiao Li comes to pick me up. This is a novel that chronicles personal growth. The author strives to write it, but their ability is limited. If there are any illogical points, they can be criticized, but there is no guarantee that they will be replied to. December 2022. Ji Province, Linqing City. Mr. Qian, then I'll go back first. Drive slowly on Xiaoli's way. A middle-aged chubby man pushed his glasses and greeted Qian Kai, then his bulky body squeezed into a white Porsche behind him and hurriedly drove away. The secretary next to him, who pretended to be drunk, seemed to be more sober. He opened the coffee-colored car door in front of Qian Kai and escorted him in. He then walked around to the other side and opened the door to get in the car. He said to the front driver, Xiao Li, Binjiang Villa. Qian then remembered Lu Pengzi's mention of returning to Shanghai at the dinner table just now. He closed his eyes and focused on it before opening it again, his eyes no longer seeming cloudy. No, let's go back to the old courtyard of 3rd Middle School. After speaking, he breathed a long sigh of relief. This person has a big appetite and wants to continue working on the second section. Construction is not good, but intelligence is a good hand. Who told him that I want to go back to Shanghai? It's really a pity to have followed his chief engineer Chen. I saw that he did a good job in wall reinforcement insulation last time, with a very meticulous mind and comprehensive thinking in many aspects. He is quite capable, but unfortunately, he followed the wrong boss. The beautiful woman next to her seemed to take it easy. The back seat was spacious, so she reached out and took off her coat, which had been soaked in a bit of rain. She turned on the heating in the back seat, with a slightly angry expression on her face. It's a common rule for outsiders and insiders, don't you often say that? And in the future, don't drink like this to harm your health. Her voice is soft, even with a hint of coquettishness. I don't want to drink either. Damn it, these people are just like they can't live without wine. Wine culture, people use wine to draw a distance. These people use wine to kick their noses and face. What is the future project? Did I promise him the future project? If he wasn't the nephew of President Liu, his mother would not even be in the mood to keep peace. The secretary didn't say anything, it seemed like he was used to speaking like that. He just looked at him, listened to him quietly, and waited for him to vent. Qian Kai spoke with some contemplation and looked out the window at the sky. I really miss being in my teens and 20s. It seems like there is an endless amount of energy. If I were to return to my youth and work now, I would be willing to do it. It's not possible now, it's really old. The beautiful secretary looked at him with a smile on her face, her voice charming. Mr. Qian, I heard that during your absence, Director Niu's bid for the second phase of the Shanghai Shangqian Bay project was rejected by Vice President Tang. The two of them had a big argument in the office, and Director Niu said it was you who made the decision. You will definitely return to Shanghai. I think it's not easy for you to achieve today. Why bother to venture into that deep pool? You have already been very successful. Qian didn't answer, just smiled and asked in reverse, oh. Old cow said I'm going to Shanghai. Even you know. The secretary quickly covered her lips, pretending to be panicked. Rumors, don't say I said it, Director Niu has a big temper. Qian Kai showed a hint of mockery and said, "Ha, rumors. Such a detailed rumor. I think it would be appropriate to arrange for you to stand at the company gate as a surveillance camera tomorrow." The female secretary stared at him for a moment and realized that he wasn't really angry. Suddenly, with a coquettish smile, she pulled up the armrest between the two of them. With her eye makeup stretched out and her almond eyes fixed on Qian Kai, she slowly unbuttoned one of her shirt buttons and placed her hand on Qian Kai's shoulder. A narrow groove that he could just see appeared in the gap between the shirts. "Mr. Qian, a surveillance camera costs only 300 yuan. It's not cheap to ask me, are you willing?" The female secretary whispered in his ear, then put a sticker on him. Qian just turned his head and glanced at him, somewhat white and with black lace on the edges. He also had a slightly higher alcohol content, and this time he didn't refuse as he used to. Instead, he leaned against the woman, closed his eyes, and sighed, enjoying the moment of relaxation. "Anyway, there's nothing worth holding onto for him now, let's enjoy the present moment first." The female secretary saw this and showed a hint of seductive smile at the corner of her mouth. She then took the initiative to hook his hand onto her leg and gently kneaded his shoulders with both hands. The female secretary has removed all intelligence at this moment, leaving only the most primitive attributes of women. Driver Xiao Li silently pushed the rearview mirror up. Xiao Li, I won't go to third middle school anymore. Let's go back to the villa, Qian Kai said with his eyes closed. This woman ultimately took down the boss. Xiao Li was thinking while turning the steering wheel, preparing to turn around. Unexpectedly, a large truck without lights rushed over from behind. Xiao Li couldn't look in the rearview mirror and was also thinking about something. It was only when he turned that he realized it was too late. Bang! There is a signboard in the distance with several large characters written on it. Driving improperly brings tears to the eyes of loved ones. For a long time, the buzzing around his ears calmed down, and Qian gradually heard some voices coming from the living room. The SJZ 3.16 incident in Hebei is gradually being investigated, and the relevant suspects are now. Qian gradually woke up from his daze, accompanied by his father's angry shouts. It's almost 2 o'clock, still sleeping, getting up for class, and taking a taxi again when it's late. What kind of car to take? I'll call Xiao Li to pick me up. Qian Kai had just finished speaking when the door was slammed open against the wall with a loud bang. Dad Qian Zonghua, who seemed to have dyed his hair and eyebrows black, appeared at the door, with one hand supporting the street vendor version of Pierre Cardin at his waist. Do you insist that I give you a beating before you get up? Xiao Li. I see you haven't woken up from your dream yet. After graduation, the reprimand he had never faced before returned to his ears, and Qian suddenly jumped out of bed with a sudden inspiration. Some of the charming feelings in my heart also dissipated. How did Dad get up from bed? Is his brain infarction okay? Why are you still getting younger? His mind was a bit chaotic as he looked at the surrounding walls as if they had been renovated, spinning and spinning. This seems to be getting a bit aggressive. He only remembers being in the car, preparing to return to the villa. Did you drink too much after coming home? This is the home of San Zhong. Didn't I ask Xiao Li to take me back to the villa? Qian Kai was scolded by his father and stared out of the door in a daze. The originally dark night had already arrived at the sunny noon, and he felt like it was a dream. His body was somewhat unconscious, and he uncontrollably embarked on the route of going to number 1 middle school more than 20 years ago. On the bus, Qian slowly woke up when he got on the bus. He saw a courtyard in the front row growing up, with a face as if frozen in his teens. Luo Yu was quietly reciting a book with his eyes closed and his long eyelashes blinking. During this time, his eyes opened, but he only stared at the roof and didn't see him at all. Even Luo Yu, who grew up with me, didn't see me. I'm a shadow now, and no one can see me. I'm just dreaming, right? Of course not. When the bus ticketing lady came up to him and stared at him, she confidently told him that the old lady could see you. The older sister stared at him, making him feel a bit uncomfortable. Big sister, we've all let it go now, don't you need to scan the health code? Upon hearing this, the ticket seller's eyebrows furrowed. Big sister. You student doll, you have no manners at all. What did you just say to let go of the healthy horse? No matter whether your horse is healthy or not, this is a bus and you can bring some poultry and vegetables. You are not allowed to lead a horse. Also, get on the bus and vote. Don't call me big sister, should I call me little sister? How come you're already in your 40s and 50s, and you still want me to call you a beauty? Too much, right? Money was speechless. I was taking out my phone in my bag, but I ended up with a $2 bill. And 50 cents. I can only pass 2 pieces over. Qian Kai found this dream very strange. He hadn't seen the 2 yuan banknotes for a long time, and theoretically had forgotten what they looked like. However, at this moment, these 2 yuan banknotes were so clear in front of him that even the earrings of the Uyghur woman on the pattern were clearly visible. Don't you have 50 cents here? Why are you taking 2? It's hard to get back. After speaking, the elder sister didn't hesitate and handed back 2 yuan directly, grabbing the 5 cents from his hand. Money is a bit confusing. In what era can there still be a consumption of 50 cents? Also, do I have a dream where I only have 2.5 yuan on my body? To be honest, since it's just a dream, it's not too much to carry 2 banknotes with a face value slightly larger than that of Tiandi Bank, right? At this moment, she could still throw a $1 billion bill in front of her and ask, can I lead a horse to the car with this bill? 2.5. Is this dream too restrained? However, it seems that when he was studying, he would only get on the bus for 50 cents, and Qian would just look around. He had never dreamed such a real dream in a long time. Since returning to Ji province in Shanghai, he rarely dreams and often sleeps soundly until dawn when he gets drunk alone. Qian looked at the old lady who was carrying eggs to sell in the market, as well as Luoyu, who had not seen her by the window for over a decade but was still so childish, and the old man next to him who was reading a newspaper with glasses. The old man's newspaper was written with time, but he only read the largest few words clearly. April 2001. In 2001. Qian couldn't help but lean his head closer, trying to read the newspaper content clearly. The old man next to him seemed to be against him. Seeing him leaning too close and leaning too far, he also turned the newspaper to his side, as if he had taken advantage of him for nothing if he had to take a look. Qian Kai was a bit dissatisfied and directly turned his head towards the old man. Isn't it just a glance at your newspaper that you can still eat me? I knew it was a dream, and I couldn't even imagine the dream zone of this entire newspaper content in my mind, could I? Now they are forcefully intervening in me. Young man, this newspaper costs only 50 cents. You can buy it wherever you get in the car, said the old man. Qian just turned his head to look at him. The distance between their heads was less than 10 centimeters. At this moment, a stimulating sensation was transmitted from his nasal cavity to his brain, causing him to squint his eyes and resist vigorously. This old man must have a bad stomach. With the turbid breath coming out of his mouth at close range when he speaks, it can make a senior dentist frown. He couldn't grasp the taste of this grade and the distance at all. You. Qian Kai's stomach twitched and he quickly stood up and withdrew 2 meters, never daring to provoke the old man again. This is definitely not a dream. A thought arose in my mind accompanied by a stomach twitch. On the playground of No. 1 middle school, classmates from class 7, who were already preparing for the first physical education class, chatted in groups of 3 or 5. Qian then walked through the familiar high school gate and walked along the entrance road to the vicinity of the playground. He saw the figures of several familiar classmates and took a photo of the iron railing around the playground. The solid texture made him unable to help but sigh. I'm back, everything's back. I was just joking, did you really want me to come back to work? Yes, the real touch he had along the way told him that he had truly returned to this era of youth. Qian Kai is still slowly accepting reality, grieving for the wealth and freedom that have left him. Recalling the travel novels and dramas he read a few years ago, someone in the distance is already calling out to him. Qian Kai. Do you bring any drinks? Give me a bite. It's the third person, Nye Junlin. Even during the most difficult period of Qian Kai's entrepreneurship, he still insisted on coming to his door every day to eat his food, determined to eat down his old brother and bad friend. It is also the spiritual support for high school students to pat him on the shoulder and tell him, don't be afraid, there is someone behind you. As the words fell, Nye Junlin approached and Qian regained his senses. He pinched me with his hand. Forget it, if it really hurt, he would have to hit me. He wanted to pinch the third, but if it were April 2001 that he had just read in the newspaper, their relationship wouldn't be as good as in their past lives, where they could play cards and slap each other in the face. Qian Kai carefully recalled that as his mind turned, his past memories seemed to gradually become clear. Currently, he should be in the first semester of transferring to the first high school. His father had just been promoted from the position of vice principal of the third high school to the position of director of the academic affairs office, just to transfer him, the villain, to the top class of our school. In my impression, my father during this period was a man who tirelessly talked to me every day about him going out to work at the age of 12, being hardworking and eager to learn, and striving to self-study and get into university with a primary school education after resuming the college entrance examination. Still a man who suffered a disastrous defeat in the battle to defend his hairline. Qian Kai only got to know his third son Nye Junlin after transferring to another school. Both of them entered the top class through the back door, and their grades in the class were disappointing. They thought they were of the same kind and often chatted and looked at girls together. It wasn't until his third year of high school that Qian suddenly realized and studied hard. However, his foundation was too weak and his logical ability was not enough, so he only took a third tier. Hey! Didn't you wake up? Did you bring water? I'm so thirsty. Nye Junlin called out to him loudly as he looked absent-minded. Ah. Ah. No, Qian just came to his senses. Nye Junlin, who was full of nerves, didn't realize that Qian had just become a bit restless today, and said with a beaming expression. Today's first physical education class, Yang and Chen Wenjie are both on the playground, right over there at the flower bed. This is an opportunity, brother, for both of us. You can let me put on a hat to play basketball later, and I'll treat you to the internet after school. Is that okay? Do you call the hat that covers me an opportunity for both of us? Then tell me, what is an opportunity? After Qian finished speaking, he began to look at the flower bed. Yang, Chen Wenjie. Money didn't use much force to recall these two names, after all, they were beautiful women. Yang and Chen Wenjie are both from the courtyard of the power company and are currently in class 7. Yang, with long eyelashes and big eyes, a small and straight nose, exudes a hint of European and American princess charm. She is around 1.7 meters tall and has won several awards in youth dance competitions in the city. She is also likely to pursue a career in the art college entrance examination. Chen Wenjie, on the other hand, is a renowned talented woman in the school. She wrote an essay titled, My Views on Dream of Red Mansions, during the final exam and was used by teachers in the third year of high school as a model for explaining how to quote classics in her college entrance exam essays. She is very popular among teachers, with a height of 1.65 meters, short hair, and a face that has a touch of ancient beauty charm. But none of them are just money. He liked to be coquettish in high school and didn't like this style when he grew up. This pure and cute style didn't interest him. Although Qian Kai is completely uninterested in opportunities now, Nye Junlin's impatience makes him a bit speechless. Nye Junlin immediately said, Opportunity is when I approach Yang. You asked me to treat you, why isn't it an opportunity? It's reasonable. I'll add fried rice. Xian accepted the opportunity, he said, thinking that fried rice downstairs at the new concept internet cafe was delicious when he was studying, and he missed it very much. He hadn't eaten it for many years. The third person is a face-to-face person, happy to reach an agreement. Class started, and the physical education teacher asked someone to go to the teaching aids room to pick up a basketball. Money had not yet adapted to the sudden arrival of student life, so he wanted to be alone and took the initiative to walk to the teaching aids room. On the way through the playground, Qian finally looked up at the sky and saw a cloud that seemed to mock him. Suddenly, he felt that the world was very real. Thinking of the anxiety and the quiet of the night in the past, he felt somewhat regretful and confused, and then clenched his fist. Damn it, as the Chinese saying goes, come here, come here. So study hard and become a working person. Forget it, it's impossible. I can't work, I have to be the boss. Qian Kai adapted to his environment while walking, slowly recalling this era. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Chronicles of Major Events. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Chronicles of Major Events this year is destined to be a dazzling one in the glorious journey of national rejuvenation. It saw a significant reduction in securities stamp duty, the opening of the B-share market domestically, the real estate market attracting attention from all parties, the emergence of open-ended funds, the Nasdaq stock market crash abroad, the shocking 9/11 incident that shocked the world, and the decision announced by the World Trade Organization in November in Doha, Qatar, for 142 WTO member countries to officially join the World Trade Organization through China. But for the current money, these things have nothing to do with him. There is a real big thing in front of my eyes. The midterm exam. Listening to two classmates passing by discussing the scope of mid-term questions, Qian finally remembered the fear of being dominated by various big and small exams during his 3 years in high school. City No. 1 High School is undoubtedly a key provincial school. Apart from the 200 or so high-paying backdoor students who come here, the majority of the more than 1,000 students recruited each year are students from various districts and counties who have high scores, including the county-level top scorers in the annual high school entrance examination. Based on Qian Kai's current grades and his father's expectations, the conversion formula is that the number of exams is approximately equal to the number of times he has been beaten. No, it should be less than, because one exam can get beaten several times, and when the results come out, one time is certain. The number of times you get beaten later depends on how many times your uncle and relatives in the yard have asked about it. How is Qian Kai's grades is probably the greeting that Qian Kai hates the most from childhood to adulthood. If it weren't for the hard work of my senior year, I would have gone to a third-tier university. No one in college worked hard to learn English and French in order to attract the attention of girls. I did not graduate and joined the military. I worked hard to review high school knowledge and took the promotion exam to become a military officer. After no troops switched jobs and went overseas, they relied on their language advantages to start foreign trade. Without this chain, the initial arrangement of fate was changed, and the money was mostly one of the third-rate college students. After graduation, they returned to their hometown and found a company or institution through family relationships, which was still promoted in the 1990s as the Iron Rice Bowl. They would fish every day and wait for the end of the month to pay their salary. The best outcome was to retire early at the age of 55. Qian just took the basketball and returned to the playground. The often sick physical education teacher, Old Lu, also showed kindness and guided him to do a warm-up exercise before preparing to disband. Let's play basketball. If you don't know how to play, let's have free activities. The last physical education class was not easy, so don't run around. If you don't play, try to watch others play. The previous physical education class was not easy. Listening to these words made me cry bitterly. With the help of Nie Junlin's handsome money, he sweated profusely under the rebounds. Whenever Nie Junlin's handsome deduction of money resulted in a rebound, causing the girl next to him to exclaim in surprise, Xian Kai would mutter something. 1 hour, 2 hours, a bowl of fried rice, a bottle of cola. For a moment, Nie Junlin was also a bit confused, as this product was about to complete the Happiness Online 3-piece set. Fried rice and cola are just short of cigarettes. I don't know that the pocket money in my bag is enough for several rounds. Brother, are you crazy? How did the price of a bowl of fried rice go up? Nie Junlin shouted in a low voice that could only be heard face to face. Did you just say you were going to hit me so many times? You listened to Yang Yi give you a round of applause, almost knocking my head off. Xian Kai said speechlessly. After fighting for a while, sweat also flowed from the forehead. Xian Kai shook his head with his eyes, not wanting to wipe it with dirty hands or let sweat flow into his eyes. Nie Junlin simply stopped to rest, pretended to drink water, hugged Xian Kai's shoulder, and begged bitterly, "Brother, you let me buckle a few more. Next time you have a crush on a girl, my buddy can give you stockings to put on your head and block the way. You can beat up the robber." Seeing Yang Yi just applauding and cheering for him, the third person also didn't want his face anymore. Xian Kai was speechless, staring at him at the vulgar ways of picking up girls in this era. You should use that method, and you won't have to invite me to eat fried rice online until today. You should sit with Yang Yi on the flower terrace and watch me play ball. As he was speaking, there was a slightly suppressed noise coming from beside him. Look. Is that Luo Yu? That beautiful woman from Wenjian class is learning to be a god. Nie Junlin also turned his head to take a look, but his eyes became straight. I'm a genius. Our school's talented girl is even more famous than Chen Wenjie. Lu Yong, that old lady, is said to have liked her since middle school, and many people have been chasing her. You probably haven't seen her before. She used to be very famous in the middle and high school departments. Money is a bit confused. Luo Yu, this little brat, is so popular in number 1 middle school. Well. But Luo Yu is really beautiful. He knew nothing about this in his past life, because every time the first class was physical education, he would probably play in an internet cafe until almost the end of class and come back to school, but he wouldn't have encountered this scene today. If I had been in my past life, I would have gotten off the bus at the entrance of the Zilianda Internet Cafe halfway to school. Lu Yong, the 8th wife in Nie Junlin's mouth, was squatting beside the flower bed and talking to Chen Wenjie. Lu Yong comes from a wealthy family and his academic performance is also in the upper middle class, but he entered the wrong profession. He should not have been a student, but his greatest skill should have been being a resident of Chaoyang or a mother in the northeast village who kowtowed melon seeds. When Qian just transferred over, it was actually okay. It was only in his junior year of high school that he felt Lu Yong's venomous tongue. However, Nie Junlin had already suffered from this person's poisoning multiple times at this time. Whether sleeping in class or skipping classes and playing games, he could be detected by Lu Yong's electronic eye and transmitted to the ears of the homeroom teacher, Lao Guo. Unfortunately, every time Nie Junlin approached him, he pretended not to know anything. If it weren't for Nie Junlin's deep understanding that his parents had put him in the top class of number 1 middle school, it would not have been easy. He also didn't want to be punished at the age of 17 or 18 and go home to eat his mother's teaching staff. According to Nie Laosan's temper, Lu Yonggao would have been wrapped in a sack. Lu Yong didn't have much athletic talent, and couldn't attract much attention in physical education class. He leaned over to Yang Ye and Chen Wenjie, tirelessly expressing his family's relatives studying abroad, showcasing his family background and vision, deliberately speaking loudly while looking at Nie Junlin with a hint of contempt. At this moment, Luo Yu walked over from a distance, with slightly permed small curly hair, an oval face, bright teeth and eyes, and very clean willow eyebrows. She was wrapped in a bright yellow T-dot shirt, revealing her snow-dot white neck, and her figure was also well-dot developed, with curves and curves. She was wearing a blue single skirt below, and the hem of the skirt was dancing in the wind, which was very fairy-like. Upon hearing the call, Lu Yong turned his head 70 degrees and saw Luo Yu. He immediately remained silent and stared at her. From junior high school to first high school, Luo Yu was the object of his admiration. The two were classmates in junior high school, and Luo Yu, a proud and talented beautiful girl, was probably synonymous with goddess in the eyes of many people during this student era. In Luo Yu's admirer sequence, Lu Yong is probably just a member of the vast army, only daring to secretly love. Now the two of them are no longer in the same class, and there are not many opportunities to meet. As Luo Yu walked away, Lu Yong didn't want to miss the opportunity to talk and quickly went forward to stop her. Luo Yu stopped and looked at Lu Yong. Lu Yong hesitated and said, "Luo Yu, it's been a long time since I saw you. Haven't you been at school lately?" "Oh, I fell ill and was hospitalized a while ago. I just came back today." "What's up?" Luo Yu replied. "Ah, it's nothing, it's just a long time since I last saw you. I miss you a bit. At least I used to be a desk mate in junior high school. Are you available on weekends? My aunt has opened a new coffee bar in the south of the city, which is quite trendy. I would like to invite you to sit down." Lu Yong called out to Luo Yu in a hurry and didn't think of what to say. He just wanted to strike up a conversation. In his panic, he spoke nonsense and even said, "I miss you a bit." This was mainly because in this era, the knowledge source for chasing girls was too poor. The one who really had some practical skills should be the street vendor Xiao Wangshu that the third person liked, rather than the book, 100 Questions About Chasing Girls, that Lu Yong often pondered. Luo Yudai frowned slightly, feeling that the words were quite abrupt. Just as she was about to speak, a somewhat lazy voice came from behind Lu Yong. "Xiao Luyu, it's been a long time since we last met." The address was somewhat intimate. "It's been a long time since I last saw Luo Yu after graduating from junior high school and moving." Luo Yu and Qian Kai grew up in the same courtyard, which can be considered as Qian Kai's little followers. At that time, Qian Kai had the highest military strength and the greatest courage among a group of children, and was very prestigious. He led them up the slope and up the wall, and every day in and out was very lively. Luo Yu was one of them, and he greatly admired him. Luo Yuning looked at Lu Yong from behind, her eyes lit up, and a smile gradually appeared. "Qian Kai. Why are you here?" Luo Yu shouted, dancing and dancing. "This is Luo Yu, what a beautiful academic achiever, completely crazy. I just saw you on the bus, but there was something I didn't call you for." Qian Kai remembered meeting on the bus just now, but Luo Yu was too focused and didn't notice him. Qian Kai was also absent-minded, so the two didn't say hello. At this time, there were not many buses, most of which were around the city. Luo Yu's new home city was also on the same line from Xinfu to the school. Lu Yong didn't expect that the two seemed to be very familiar and were about to interject when Luo Yu interrupted them. "What's your situation now? Did you transfer it?" "Yeah, my dad has been transferred over, so I'll just come over. How about we share the same school as you top students?" Qian Kai carried his hands behind his back, with a hint of a former little adult in his words. "Ah, are you free on the weekend? Accompany me to the lakeside park. A friend and I have made an appointment to row a boat, but we can't move and are worried about finding a boy. Can you help us row?" Luo Yui turned away from the quiet demeanor in the eyes of others and felt a little excited. She agreed, but there were no suitable male friends to help with rowing. At this point, she encountered money and was probably the most suitable partner. Her heart was stirred and she was ready to take him as a strong soldier. "I'm not available. Qian Kai is not a fool. As a girl like Luo Yu, if she talks so well, it won't be a good thing. Oh my, can you help me?" Luo Yu deliberately acted coquettishly only after holding on to the money. She was not the one who would give up easily. When she was a child, she stole candy from Grandma Tang's jar and could chat with her in the yard for a while just to find an opportunity to take action. There's a beautiful woman, you must regret not going. Luo Yu saw that acting coquettishly was not enough, and her backhand was a wave of beautiful woman temptations. Qian Kai shook his head, indicating that he did not accept the temptation, and leaned closer to Luo Yu, whispering. To be frank, do you want me to sell my coolies and still have to treat you? Luo Yu was pricked and maintained a smile on her face. You can say whether to go or not. The onlookers couldn't hear what they were saying. Suddenly, they saw Luo Yu bouncing around while grabbing the money, her chin falling to the ground. Yang Ye and Chen Wenjie sitting on the flower bed behind them also looked at Qian Kai with great interest. The profile of Qian Kai's face stands out in the sunlight, and he has a streamlined physique since he was a sports enthusiast. Even if he's not Lu Chuanfeng, he's still a Mitsui. It's just that Qian Kai didn't like to communicate with his classmates before, and Nie Junlin, who often travels with him, is also a handsome guy who doesn't compromise, covering up some of his past brilliance in Sanzhong. Lu Yong watched this scene up close and felt very depressed. He wanted to interject a few times, but the two of them were too close, and Luo Yu completely ignored him, giving him no chance. Of course, Qian Kai didn't want to pay attention to Lu Yong, but now he also remembered that Lu Yong had done many things that disgusted him in his past life during his senior year of high school. For example, he won honors for his class during the senior year sports meeting, and Lu Yong, who had congenital disabilities in his motor cells, publicly said those sour words to him in order to elevate himself. Qian Kai, the learning atmosphere at No. 3 Middle School is relatively relaxed, and there are also many sports students, which is more suitable for you. Why did you transfer to No. 3 Middle School? Money always seeks revenge day and night. Since he was reborn, if he had any grudges, he would seek revenge in advance. At this moment, there was also a mischievous thought surging in his mind, and he did not respond to Luo Yu. He retreated to Lu Yong's side and made a sales gesture. Luo Yu, I heard that Lu Yong has been secretly in love with you for several years. Do you want to consider giving him a chance? She sneered and blinked at Luo Yu. The tacit understanding between the two when they were young was still present. Seeing his mocking and full expression, Luo Yu naturally understood that his junior high school classmate Lu Yong should have had a grudge against Qian Kai. He was implying not to give him a good face. I have already thrown everything you wrote me into the trash can, and I don't like drinking coffee. Please keep it for others to drink. After Luo Yu finished speaking lightly, he had no interest in talking to him further, and then turned his head to stare directly at Qian Kai. The meaning in my eyes is very obvious, I have avenged you. Lu Yong was stunned. He had never seen Luo Yu like this in his 3 years of junior high school. No matter how much Luo Yu ignored him before, she was also a gentle little fairy with a smile on her face every day. She had never directly rejected him before, so she would leave some face for him. Lu Yong suddenly realized that he knew people's faces but not their hearts. He was stunned for about 3 seconds, and a complex infatuation was released in his eyes. He trembled and said, "Good," then turned around and left, trying to see if Luo Yu would stop him. Qian just glanced back and gave this performance a rating in his heart. Remove the highest score of 8.3 points and the lowest score of 8.3 points, resulting in a final score of 6 points. My acting skills are good, but the plot is cliché and I can pass it. There is something, but not much. The bystanders were far apart and couldn't hear them speaking, but just by looking at their expressions and postures, there was some speculation. Anyway, this gossip about a transfer student from 3rd Middle School and a talented woman from 1st Middle School should spread quickly. Before, Luo Yu disregarded his reputation to vent his anger for his little friend. Now that Lu Yong has left, people around him have started to discuss and his face has turned slightly red. Did he offend you? He has a very bad mouth. Previously, there was a female classmate in the middle school class who was criticized by him for crying over a cleaning job. I know he likes me and even stuffed a love letter into my desk, but I pretended not to see it and threw it in the trash can. Is there such a thing? Xian suddenly felt that this person owed more than he remembered, and even the girl was not spared. Upon seeing this, Luo Yu thought to herself that after pretending for so long, her image had been ruined today. The more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she became, and her expression became somewhat agitated. I'm so angry with you and even offended my old classmate. On the weekend, you have to compensate me by treating me to a big meal. Do you hear me? After speaking fiercely, he clenched his small fist at the money. Turning around, she felt something was wrong and immediately regained her ladylike appearance. Xian Kai. The money immediately turned around and left, wanting to pay off the debt. You're really joking. After eating a big meal, I had a total of 2 yuan on me, and I had a hard time treating you to fried potatoes. Turning around, I also saw Lu Yong, who had walked for so long and had only walked less than 20 meters. Genius, to have talent and face, to have acting skills and face. Xian Kai gave Lu Yong an appreciative look, but he didn't know if he could see it. Money, talent. Luo Yu roared behind him. The money just stopped somewhat helplessly. My sister.in.law is furious, why don't we give her face? Got it, Xian then turned his back to Luo Yu and gestured, okay. When did this ghost spirit start pretending to be quiet? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Review of past events. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Review of past events after physical education class. Nye Junlin hooked on Qian and kept asking him how he knew Luo Yu, while Qian could only explain their intimate relationship. The two of them chatted and walked back to the last row of the classroom. Qian then returned to his seat, which left a deep impression on Qian. The last row was backed by the back door. The back row is by the window, Wang's hometown. And at this point, the back door doesn't have the same small window as before. It's a solid wood door, so there's no need to worry about the homeroom teacher's head suddenly appearing around like a big head sticker when driving. It's simply double the joy, it's really a good place to fish. Sitting here is not because the homeroom teacher Lao Gua is biased, it's just that everyone sits in order of height. Qian, who is only 1.79 meters tall, is already at the top of his peers in Ji province, so he naturally sits back. However, the corner position was indeed chosen by Qian himself, intentionally to avoid the teacher's gaze. Before class even started, Qian finally pulled out a few exercise books from his desk and box. He was actually a bit nervous and tried to read the math problems, which seemed a bit awkward. However, at least his logical thinking was much stronger than in his previous life, and his calculation ability was not a problem. After being reinforced by the military promotion exam in his previous life, he didn't feel too difficult. There is a train of thought, but the formula theorem is relatively unfamiliar. Comparing it with analysis, it is not difficult to overcome. You should know that this question is considered the private product of the top-class teacher, and the difficulty is obviously stronger than the ordinary question. If we were to use money from a past life, we would not even be able to understand the answer at this time. There is simply no way to solve the problem, and even if we are familiar with the formulas and theorems, we would not be able to start. Each exam can only write a solution and then randomly write down the relevant formulas we know. By contrast, as long as you are familiar with the formulas, there should be no problem improving in this midterm exam. It goes without saying that you didn't like to memorize politics in your past life. It was only through physics English that you passed the military promotion exam. Currently, in the second year of high school, you mainly face mechanics and heat, which are the strengths of Qian Kai. However, chemistry is a bit vague, and you also need to familiarize yourself with the key texts in Chinese. However, the money spent on several important exams in high school and my past life is what I remember. This era is not a time of abundant learning materials, and teachers do not have many materials at hand. In this situation, I need to spend more time explaining the exam questions used in each mid-term and final exam in detail. Even years later, when classmates gather, I can laugh and say, that question was really difficult. I calculated the XX process, but I got the answer wrong. Many times, teachers have a sudden realization after solving problems, which leaves some impressions to some extent. Even if they don't remember it too specifically, they can still know some well-known problems after the exam, let alone the college entrance examination. The direction of the main question and the essay topic are very clear, and as long as the question-setting teacher does not change, there will be roughly no mistakes. In this era, the importance placed on the college entrance examination is much greater than it was 10 or 20 years later, and even more so in previous years. Before his rebirth, his father Qian Zonghua was half paralyzed, and he can still remember the calculation process of the log problem in the 78-year college entrance examination, now called logarithmic function. With this in mind, Qian quickly took out a piece of paper, compared it with the tutoring materials, and began to look for similar question types to mark, preparing to focus on tackling. In this life, to make up for the regret, one cannot afford to miss the college entrance examination battlefield. Moreover, even if one wants to earn back the billions lost in their rebirth, achieving a good score is an important capital for parents to let go of their time freedom. As he was writing, Qian realized that there was no sound around him. He looked up and saw a big face with a beard, trembling with fear. He couldn't even hold his pen firmly and almost punctured the paper. This person is the homeroom teacher, Guo Shihai. Due to his short stature, a face full of flesh, and a big beard, he is known for his ferocity when he gets angry. Therefore, the graduates he has brought with him have been given the nickname, Butcher, by word of mouth. However, to be honest, butchers are definitely the teachers who are most convinced by money. There is no doubt about their sense of responsibility. Regardless of whether they are good or bad, they treat them equally, and even prioritize and allocate more energy towards them than good students. The butcher stared at him for another 2 seconds before slowly speaking up. Well, I thought I could focus so much on reading novels. Finally, I became more prominent and sensible. Study hard, and if you don't understand, ask the teacher. I also have an explanation to Director Qian, so that I don't have to hand over my children to me, and the more I learn, the worse. After finishing speaking, the butcher walked leisurely to the podium with his hands behind his back. The last class was the class meeting, which mainly counted the miscellaneous matters in the class, summarized and criticized some of the problems from the previous week. He didn't like to talk too much about miscellaneous matters unrelated to learning, and after 10 minutes of explanation, he began self-study. I reviewed some unclear science formulas and soon finished school. There was no extra class arranged by the teacher for tonight's self-study, and even day students were not required to attend evening self-study. Only then did I pack up my things and prepare to go back home to continue reading. No one at home would see what I wrote, so I wouldn't reveal my targeted review intention. Even if I tested a lot of my own review content afterwards, I wouldn't be doubted and would be even more careless. As a reborn person, Qian has thought about many things and tried to make everything as reasonable as possible to avoid being taken care of. Therefore, in terms of behavior style, Qian needs to approach a young person and adapt to his physical age. A 17-year-old teenager. It's even more important to understand what you want. With this in mind, you already have some plans in mind. In the afternoon after school, Nie Junlin came over to fulfill his promise and invite him to go online. He looked at him with a pained expression on his face and smiled, telling him why you pretended to be such a local tycoon. I won't kill you today, so I'll leave it for you. There's something else at home. On the way home, Qian Kai still felt some of the tremendous changes in social development over the past 20 years. The central CBD and the integration of urban and commercial areas have not yet begun planning. There are still some old-fashioned residential buildings around number 1 middle school, and the subway line has not yet been opened. Even some milk tea bars and dessert shops on the streets in later generations are rare, and you have to go to the pedestrian street in the old city center to see some of them. However, you can see 2 coffee shops. However, money is not prepared to invest in these things. If you want to do business, you need to consider that consumption capacity is inevitably linked to social development trends. Planning too far ahead cannot meet the broad needs of society. On the way, I met several familiar uncles and aunts and warmly greeted them. Uncle Jean. Aunt Tian. These people are all old teachers from number 3 middle school. In their past lives, they also bought commercial residential buildings and moved out with the development of the economy. After many years, they met their young faces and could recall the warmth in the courtyard. However, it was these uncles and aunties who felt something different and turned their heads to look at him, nodding their heads as a sign. This something else is actually very simple, it's that the child actually takes the initiative to call someone. As soon as I arrived at my doorstep, I could smell the aroma coming from the kitchen window next to me. My mother, Su Feng, must have come back. After eating her parents' craft for so many years, I could still smell it. It was the taste of fish-flavored shredded pork or sweet and sour cabbage made by my mother, with a sour and sweet taste. At this time, in old-fashioned residential buildings, anyone who cooks whatever food can simply open the ventilated kitchen window facing outside, and during the process of climbing stairs, they can basically smell it. Put down your backpack, take out the key, and enter the house. Sure enough, Dad was reading the news in the living room and Mom was busy in the kitchen. After a while, Money hesitated a bit and they were all reborn. Can't you please make Mom and Dad happy? Qian couldn't help but think of the advertisement that often aired in this era where a little boy held a foot basin and said, "Mom is working hard." After thinking for a while, let's forget it. In this world of couples, I only saw myself one morning and another noon. It's not easy for Mom to make money by opening a restaurant outside all day, and Dad has also put in a lot of mental effort for himself. It's better not to let them worry about whether he's been struck by lightning. Although I may have been struck by lightning a few hours ago. However, despite being 39 years old, facing significant changes in life, I still can't help but want to do something. Watching the father in the living room calmly watching TV without any sense of self-doubt, Qian decided to start with his mother instead. Entering the kitchen, looking at the same hairstyle that my mother had once recognized as the Golden Lion King Xie Sun, I still felt a bit uncomfortable. When I was a child, my mother would even look in the mirror and ask myself, who is good? Looking between my mother and Luo Yu's mother. At that time, my emotional intelligence could be said to have reached a state of transformation. Of course it's you who looks good. But Luo Yu's mother is very rich. Every day, I use the money to buy her Oops milk candy. A mother who wants to be strong throughout her life will reward herself with 1 yuan to buy snacks. However, at present, my mother's hairstyle has almost reached the stage of giving up treatment, and she no longer asks about the beauty of money. She generally believes that earning money is more important than being beautiful. "Mom, did you come back so early today?" Qian Kai asked. Su Feng replied while busy, "Master Zhang is guarding the store today." Master Zhang was a chef hired by his mother's restaurant, and there was also a little Huajie who served vegetables and washed dishes. She didn't know her full name, and she was a distant relative who had been calling her that since childhood. "I'll do it. Although I'm not prepared to shock the world, seeing my mom busy still makes money a bit unbearable." "Forget it, there's no oyster sauce or cold rice at home. In my mother's opinion, I only know how to make fried rice with oyster sauce from childhood to adulthood." "Oh, don't you believe me anymore?" "I can do that too," Qian Kai stubbornly said. Su Feng glanced at the money and pondered for 3 seconds before throwing away the spatula. Okay, come on. After finishing speaking, he turned around and left. In order to cultivate Qian Kai's independent ability, he had already adopted the mentality of, let him try, if it really doesn't work, go out and eat. My mother's years of earning money by opening a shop outside make her believe that cultivating Qian Kai's ability to live independently is very important. She believes that even children without independent living ability have to cry when they leave the house, and she also believes that she only wants Qian Kai to study better than her father Qian Zonghua. No, she thinks she's in the atmosphere. Qian Kai lived alone for more than 10 years in his past life, and his taste was extremely picky, so he had some cooking skills. In a few seconds, he fried the things his mother had cut into vegetables and served them on the table. It turned out that the dishes were not inferior to his mother's skills. Dinner's over. Qian just knocked on the table with chopsticks. No knocking. Only those who ask for food use chopsticks to knock. My father appeared extremely angry. He was able to get into college when he was inspired by someone saying, Qian Zonghua is a beggar. A primary school student still wants to get into college, and he can afford to cook rice in his palm. 3 people sat at the table, enjoying themselves harmoniously. Mom tasted the food and was a bit surprised. She could actually take a bite, but Dad seemed to take it for granted. In his understanding, these things are much simpler than reading, and he can learn them as soon as he learns. Money was a bit unsatisfied, so I decided to appear sensible and subtly change the impression of the elderly couple, making it easier for me to act in the future. I'll cook when I have free time, Mom. You can rest when you go home. After speaking, she was afraid that she wouldn't believe in her cooking skills, so she added that she seemed to know how to cook. Today's stir-fried lotus white, hand-torn cabbage, if there is steamed fish sauce, or rock sugar will be better to eat. If you want money, just say it directly. As soon as my mother put down her chopsticks, she interrupted Qian Kai. It has been more than a decade since Qian Kai was young. She has understood that there is no such thing as a free lunch in front of her son. He is already very familiar with his sensible appearance, which is a precursor to asking for money. Qian Kai. The interrupted money suddenly became a bit dull and speechless, but upon reflection, there is an old Chinese saying that goes, come, come. Since the atmosphere has heated up to this point, don't waste it. I met Luo Yu at school today. She called me to treat her to dinner on the weekend, and she also had a friend who said that studying is also good. Qian Kai said shamelessly. What are you going to treat her to? Qian Zonghua continued. Since Luo Yu grew up and didn't follow the money, she gradually became a well-known and well-behaved child in the yard. Her grades were good, and she became more and more beautiful. These parents in the yard all liked her. Upon hearing this, Dad pondered for a moment and directly set the tone to eat. The discussion was limited to what to eat. I'm an older brother, so I can't be stingy. She said she can eat whatever she wants. Qian Kai's tone was full. Although Luo Yu is in the same grade as Qian Kai, she studies early and is 1 year younger than Qian Kai. Upon hearing this, Dad didn't hesitate to say, you get him 30. This was said to Su Feng, and after saying it, he felt that he should show his composure. He slammed his lips and said, don't just think about being a big brother. You should also study hard with others in your studies. I know. Even at the age of 39, I couldn't resist the nagging that was about to begin. Mom, give me the money. After finishing speaking, he picked up the bowl and went to the kitchen to wash it, then entered the room with his backpack. Qian just lay in bed with a deep hiccup, unable to help but start planning for the future. The aftertaste of rebirth was still overflowing, and after half a day, his heart had not completely calmed down. Upon closer reflection, he needed to break the control of his parents and study hard before flipping over, finding a book, and starting to learn. There was nothing to say overnight. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Manifestation of Saints in Front of Men. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Manifestation of Saints in Front of Men. Throughout the night, Qian Kai spent the whole night reviewing formulas and theorems. As the second year of high school was not yet over, around 10 o'clock, he had already read through the basic parts of the content that could be scored. He also used his notebook to summarize the still unfamiliar parts. The rest is just doing the problem, picking up the old things and integrating formulas into the problem-solving approach. Currently, it's just some auxiliary lines in the mathematical geometry part that I can't quite remember how to do. The second question of verification will definitely take up a lot of time, but this part has always been my weakness. For now, just solve the first question of this major question, get 5 points for the 12-point question, and give up later. After finishing these things, seeing that my parents hadn't come in to look at me yet, I probably thought I was asleep, so I had to turn on the 3 lights in the room and take out the questions to do. Money is waiting for an opportunity to show my parents that I am gradually maturing and starting to study hard. Until around 11 o'clock, my father finished watching TV and went into the house to turn off the lights. He opened the door and was about to say something like, "I don't know how to turn off the lights, I don't know how expensive the electricity is." When he saw his son doing a question, he was stunned for a few seconds before saying nothing. He quietly closed the door and went out. Then I heard the sound of flipping boxes and cabinets in the room where I was putting things, the sound of the old couple talking, footsteps, and the sound of my dad shouting inside. "Add more sugar. He won't drink it if there's less sugar." In no time, Su Feng opened the door and brought a cup of hot milk into the room. He placed it directly on the table, and only then did he look back. His father also stood at the door, with an expression that was hard to express. If we had to describe it forcefully, it would be seeing the hope of the whole village, mixed with 5 points of hope, 2 points of hesitation, and 3 points of doubt about whether he is actually learning. To prove this, we slowly walked to the table with our hands behind us, looking at the dense formulas in Qian Kai's notebook, and that 3 points of doubt turned into dust and settled. Qian Zonghua remained calm and silently walked out with his hands behind his back. Su Feng was also a bit conflicted, whether to indulge him until dawn, or to speak some caring words that his parents should have said normally. Finally, he left a sentence saying, "Pay attention to rest, balance work and rest," and then left the room. The cautious attitude of the elderly couple and the constant discussion in the neighboring room all night made Qian realize one thing. He still had to study, and cooking was useless. Since it is clear that we need to study hard, we need to maintain a normal learning state. It is easy to make significant progress in mid-term exams. After all, this is just like making money for novice writers. No matter how low it is, there is not much room for improvement. There is still a lot of room for improvement. Of course, this kind of cross-writer promotion is often encouraged by monthly pass recommendations, and low-income individuals can still persist. I woke up early in the morning, and the money here didn't sleep as well as in my past life. It had a somewhat elderly person sleeps less vibe. Looking at the calendar, Legend is about to enter the market, and Malaysia is also starting to engage in the Internet of Things. Malaysia is also starting to get involved in the second round of South African MIH financing. The crazy rise in the stock market on October 23 in the second half of the year today was the only understanding that Qian Kai had of the 2001 stock market. It was thanks to his previous life when he enrolled in an MBA program. If he couldn't control the limit up, he would have to focus on selling crayfish this year. With this in mind, there isn't much time left for the Chinese team. Before leaving, I saw 35 yuan on the table, 30 yuan for treating Luo Yu to dinner. My daily bus fare and breakfast cost 3 yuan, and the remaining 2 yuan was probably a reward, which was due to the satisfaction of my parents last night. Qian couldn't help but smile and picked up the money and walked out. On the bus to school, I met Luo Yu again. Due to the flag lowering ceremony on Friday, the little one wore a school uniform today, which made him look a bit cute. This time, number 1 middle school doesn't have a summer uniform yet, and it's the same for spring, summer, autumn, and winter. The school only requires flag raising and flag lowering on Monday and Friday to wear a school uniform. Luo Yu's small face is white. She seems to have used skin care products, and her mouth seems to have applied lipstick. Qian can't help sighing that Luo dad is rich to her daughter. Brother Kai, good morning. Luo Yu approached to say hello, her voice gentle and sweet. The nickname, Brother Kai, made Qian Kai very scared. Qian Kai immediately touched his head, looking injured. Oh my brain is hurting. Luo Yu, speak with a lower sugar content. I know you made Lu Yong angry and avenged me that day, so Sunday is planning to extort me. I have a plan in mind. Luo Yu stared at Qian and said, what delicious food are you treating me to? He seemed very greedy. I'm so screwed, Qian Kai replied casually. Ah. Luo Yu crashed a bit. I'll know then, Qian rolled his eyes. By the way, I told my dad to treat you to dinner on the weekend, and you brought a friend with you. His academic performance is very good, so don't let him slip your tongue when you met him at school. Qian then remembered the panic at home and quickly confessed. Luo Yu covered her mouth and smiled for a while, then angrily said, what? They are already good at studying, are they good at learning? Luo Yu laughed like a silver bell. With her pure and outstanding facial features, she attracted a glance around her. Money was also rippling, and then blush. Qian Kai, this Nima is a sister who grew up together since childhood. Entering the school together, the rising sun shone on their faces, and they frolicked and frolicked, appearing very warm. Luo Yu was originally considered a celebrity of the school, with a quiet reputation outside. No one who knew her had ever seen her like this before, and for a moment, several waves of people around her began to discuss. The one who came from 3rd middle school. That Luo Yu used to be from the 3rd middle school family courtyard. My childhood sweetheart. Oh. The more it spread, the more crooked it became. After hearing Qian's words, he turned his head and scolded the group of people with the loudest voices, now that we're not talking about others betraying us, right? Can we talk back to your class? With a burst of laughter, Luo Yu raised his hand and slapped Qian Kai's back, causing a commotion of, oh, around him. Money couldn't stay any longer, so he made an appointment with Luo Yu the day after tomorrow and walked straight to the classroom. Early reading English teacher Chen Weilai sent out 2 English weekly reports, requesting to finish them today. The class was suddenly filled with grief. Due to the approaching midterm exams, the number of assignments left by teachers in various subjects has suddenly increased. Even some students with high grades can't bear it anymore, so they quickly started doing English early reading. Qian Kai was holding an English weekly report and suddenly felt a bit bored. He glanced at it and found that the questions on it, except for a few closed tests and a few fixed grammar points to pay attention to, were probably more difficult for middle school students who had a better language environment since childhood to do. The most difficult subject for English is actually the students in the key class where money is placed. Because it is a top-tier class in a key school, many students come from the top scorers in the middle school entrance examination in the lower towns. However, the English learning environment in many towns is very poor, and teachers have serious pronunciation and accent problems. There is also no tutoring environment like in the city where there are training classes everywhere. Especially in rural primary schools, the unrestrained English basic education has led to poor language sense among students from these towns. Poor language sense can lead to slow problem-solving, and many things are innate shortcomings. By working hard and relying on rote memorization, many children from rural areas, even if their English grades are good, will still struggle to pass even if they are asked to read the text aloud. Most of the English weekly are multiple-choice questions, and Qian Kaiyun finished them with a tick. When it came to the essay section, the topic was to write an email to a friend in Australia about the recent situation and hometown. Qian Caifei quickly made a draft in his mind and then wrote a few key words in the newspaper. Even if they all worked together, he didn't plan to submit them to the teacher for correction, so he took them out during the lecture to see if there were any mistakes. Unexpectedly, after the third class in the morning, Yang Ye, the representative of the English department, stood up and shouted. After finishing the morning reading of the English weekly report, please submit it first. Teacher Chen will make some changes when he has time, and his desk mate who is not around will help collect it. At this moment, Qian was emptying the toilet. Originally, he didn't have a desk mate, and he was the only one in his corner. However, Zhang Liang in the row next to him saw him reading and writing his weekly report with a crackling sound. He found it on his desk and opened it to see that it was all done, so he helped hand it over. When she arrived at school in the afternoon, Yang Ye saw him enter the class and stopped him. Qian Kai, what did you pay for? It made my English teacher scold me. After finishing speaking, he spread his English weekly report on the table and pushed it in front of him. 1 duzi, which big brother handed over my defective products to the teacher. However, Qian then fixed his gaze and prepared to argue, no problem, don't you think all of this is a hook? It's all right. Yang Yashin said, what level of proficiency are you? I've been collecting your test papers for 2 months and I'm not sure where I copied them. Then he pointed at the essay and angrily said, what is this writing about? Can you read it to me and listen? Qian was about to continue pretending to be foolish, and picked up the newspaper and began reciting the key words, Dear Jerry. I have compiled an English essay using a few key prompts. Yang Ye stared at him dumbfounded. When Qian Kai mentioned the situation in his city, he used several super words from the college English test band 4, such as density. In addition, he had spent a long time in Texas, USA, and had learned some southern accents in his previous life. Yang Ye didn't understand it for a moment, but was also influenced by Qian Kai's aura and still refused to admit defeat, saying, You're in English. Why don't you say it's French? Qian was just stunned, French. Yang Ye looked at his expression, and it was indeed a mix of words. She regained her proud demeanor and said, Money is talented. English in the college entrance examination is 150 points, and if you want to get into college, you have to take it seriously. Just about to have a long speech, Qian Kai couldn't bear it, the most was nagging. Hurry up and interrupt her. Do you want to listen to the French version? Sure. After finishing speaking, he picked up the newspaper and looked at it, then changed his tone and said, Cheri Jelly, Commenta Virginia. Standing outside the door, Chen Wei, who was about to enter, heard the commotion inside and hugged her hands. After confirming that it was French, she was so shocked that she opened her mouth and paused. She continued to listen carefully, with a smile on her face. After Qian Kai finished reading, she didn't wait for everyone to react. She walked into the class and went to the podium, looking at Qian Kai with great interest. Yang Ye looked at the teacher's arrival and seemed to have found a place to rest. Teacher, look at him. If he doesn't write his essay, he's still causing trouble here. Yang Ye blushed and her chest moved up and down, and Qian Kai glanced at her without a trace. Qian Kai just spoke French. I also studied abroad for a while, but I am not as proficient as him. Chen Wei explained and exclaimed in admiration, I didn't expect there to be people outside of us. I also read Qian Kai's weekly report this morning and only got one question wrong. Now it seems that he wrote the essay well and is a master. Everyone was in an uproar, and suddenly the classroom exploded. Suddenly, there was a loud bang in the back row, and Nye Junlin clapped his desk and let out a loud scream. Qian Kai, you're not human. When did you learn these things behind my back? For a moment, there was another burst of laughter amidst various exclamations, attracting the onlookers from the neighboring class to inquire. Upon hearing the situation, some were amazed, while others said, the top class is bull-beat, before leaving with a gloomy expression. Some girls were staring closely at Qian Kai, with stars in their eyes. In just one afternoon, the high school campus spread throughout. Afterwards, a wave of French language swept through, and many girls started reading French vocabulary. For a while, money became the public enemy of boys, and they all believed that money had increased the basic cost of picking girls. Of course, this period of time, which is about 2 to 3 weeks, is equivalent to the speed at which girls in later generations will switch to idols and husbands. After school, Xian was about to go out when Yang Ye stopped him and hurriedly picked up the pink backpack to go out with him. As she walked, Yang Ye pursed her lips, blushing slightly and apologizing, "I'm sorry, I misunderstood you this afternoon." The more she said, the quieter her voice became. Xian had only been thinking of her for a while and felt a bit embarrassed. He had exhausted all his joking thoughts and didn't plan to tease her anymore. He said happily, "It's okay. If you don't ask me this, there won't be a chance for me to become a saint in front of you." People, do they become saints in front of others? Yang Ye was confused. Just pretend to be X. Xian then realized the consequences of saying these words and quickly ran away with a smile. Yang Ye did act up and chased after her, her face turning red. The two of them attracted a lot of attention. Yang Ye's slender figure started running, and many boys were secretly licking their tongues. At this moment, a high school sophomore boy who only met Qian Kai Luoyu at the school gate in the morning saw this scene, his eyes widened, and he roared in a voice of 100 decibels, "Damn it, bastard. This morning, Luoyu will meet Yang Ye, there is no way out." The surroundings are exploding again. As they chatted at the school gate, the two ended the conversation and Yang Ye regained her composure. She looked at the money and walked up to the front, feeling a bit nervous. She cleared her throat and called out to him, chasing after him and saying, "So, that is your English really good?" Xian thought for a moment and said, "It's okay, the focus is on speaking. There may be some minor flaws in the written test." Yang Ye's face turned red to the tip of her ear, and after hesitating for a while, she said, "I want to take the TOEFL exam next year. Can you practice with me? On the weekend, there's a CAFA that I often go to, which is nearby." Xian Kai thought to himself that this girl was going to study abroad in the United States, but there was no news of it. He replied, "Maybe she's not available on the weekend. Luo Yu arranged for me to go boating next week, okay?" Upon hearing this, Yang Ye felt a bit disappointed and said, "Oh, Luo Yu." Xian Kai didn't really want to take this, nor did he want to explain his relationship with Luo Yu. He just smiled awkwardly and said, "I didn't see it. She's still a little rich woman. Are you going to the United States?" Yang Ye's face turned even redder and she said, "I haven't made up my mind yet. I'll see you next week when you have time." She quickly quickened her pace and left. Xian shook his head and smiled. He was 17 years old, so nice. When people are young, they can still blush, which is a feeling that Xian has not experienced since he was only 8 years old. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Construction Commencement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Construction Commencement. On the way home, Xian finally remembered what had happened in the past 2 days. He slowly entered a state of mind in this 17-year-old body. As Saturday approached, he had another appointment with Luo Yu the day after tomorrow. So it was time to make use of it tomorrow Saturday. Since today's French proficiency has been exposed and the idea of low-key development has backfired, it's better to make good use of it. If you want to do business, even if it's a small business, you need to have a foundation. With only 35 yuan on your own, if you want to resell a yellow disc, it may not be enough, let alone use it the day after tomorrow. After careful consideration, the money was finally decided. Without going straight home, I went to the third brother Nie Junlin's house and called out Nie Junlin, saying directly, "Are you still here last time when you said your dad bought you that particularly old-fashioned clothes?" Nie Junlin asked why he brought it, and he didn't hesitate to say that the money was useful. "You lent me something to wear," so Nie Junlin went up and took it. Taking his shirt and clothes into his backpack, he returned home. His father Qian Zonghua was sitting on the sofa watching Central Radio 4, which was a habit he had always had until his past life when he got married. For a moment, he also felt a bit hesitant to speak. He accompanied Lao Qian to watch TV for a while and posted a message in a daze. Recalling the past, I thought of some things inside in my heart, perhaps at the height of my past life. It's still not enough. After waiting for a while, Qian finally stood up and walked straight to the refrigerator to open it. He took out a few piles of vegetables, steamed rice, and then walked to the living room to ask Dad, "Mom won't come back, will you?" Qian Zonghua looked at his son, then at the time, and leaned back onto the sofa, saying, "She's not coming back. She's eating in the store, so don't mess with the dishes. After reading the news for the past 10 minutes, I'll come and deal with it." Money didn't pay attention and walked into the kitchen, saying, "Forget it, I want to have breakfast today. I'll take care of it. I'll report something to you later." After finishing cutting the vegetables, opening the fire, stir-frying the vegetables, the oil smoke is a bit big, the eyes are astringent, and it's a bit uncomfortable. There are some things to consider, don't think about it. There's nothing to think about, it's uncomfortable to think about it. Half an hour later, the food was served, and Qian finally tidied up his mood and had dinner with his father. After taking several bites, Qian Zonghua spoke up and said, "What's up? Let's talk." After speaking, he spread his legs open and sat upright, which was Qian Zonghua's usual posture for talking big things. I must have felt that Qian was so calm and composed, which should not be a small matter. I've been learning French for more than a year, you know. Qian said that Rocket was the only one. Do you know? What do you know? How do I know? Sure enough, Qian Zonghua's reaction was like being struck by lightning. Looking at the child next to him, he didn't know if it was his own offspring for a moment. Qian Zonghua was very convinced that the ancestors of the old Qian family had never been exposed to French for 3 generations. Moreover, in today's era, if you want to find a French training class in the southwestern border area, you have to go to the provincial capital in order to be able to find it. After all, this is only Z City, not Lin City. Qian Zonghua has thought about it 3 times but couldn't find a reasonable plan for how he learned French. In the end, it can only be attributed to the result that he may have only read opinion language books and not learned very well. Qian Zonghua thought about not losing face as a father and pretended to remain calm, saying, "Learned. How did you learn?" "Not bad, I can talk to the French for a while," Qian replied calmly. Now Qian Zonghua couldn't sit still and said, "How many words can we talk about? Do you understand? How many words can we talk about?" After thinking for a moment, Qian couldn't hide his big move. He replied seriously, "It depends on how much he wants to talk to me." Qian Zonghua stood up directly and said, "He can chat a few words if he wants. Is it better than English?" Qian Zonghua thought about the last final exam, where he only got a perfect score of 150 points. He scored 75 points, which was just in half. There were English papers with X everywhere, and he felt that his English was not very good. He sighed and said, "Forget it, it's impossible. This child doesn't have this talent." Who would have thought that Qian Kai would exaggerate? Better than English, if I had a 150-point French test, I could take 135. No, 140. How do you say it? Qian Zonghua immediately asked. Bonjour's money is somewhat speechless. Have you eaten yet? Continued the question. I ate it. The money became even more speechless. I'm calling for you to translate. Qian Zonghua exclaimed excitedly. The ancestors of the French are not in the capital, and when they meet and ask someone if they have eaten, they don't ask like that. Politely speaking, thank you is merci, and if you're not polite, it's de rain. Nod and shake your head, but non. Alright, if you don't understand, why don't you test me? Qian Kai said a string of polite language and felt like he was being run over by the car sticker from a French kindergarten. Are you still afraid that I won't understand? I'll tell you that when I graduated from elementary school and took the college entrance examination, I was 1 by 1 for the phonetic symbols in the foreign language exam. Qian Zonghua felt insulted by this little brat and immediately spoke incessantly. Okay. You're amazing, you're amazing. Let's get down to business. Qian Kai quickly brought back the topic. Without discussing the main topic, he was able to talk until before the liberation. Seeing that he interrupted successfully, he continued, I'm going to a classmate's house to play. Well, he's the kind of student who studies very well. His relatives brought him French learning materials and some cassette tapes. I was interested in them and borrowed them to learn for a while. Later, when he didn't want to learn, he gave them to me. I took them and studied for over a year. But they were stolen in the front row. Stolen. Where did you buy it? I'll go buy it for you. As long as you're willing to learn, I'll pick off all the stars in the sky. Qian Zonghua suddenly realized that it's not good. In this era, if anyone knows several foreign languages, they are all national-level talents, and you can't miss out on this talent. No, I can almost memorize that textbook and it's already useless. I went to ask someone, and they said they want to continue learning and need to register for classes in Lincheng. They also said they can introduce me, but the registration fee for the first phase is 1,000 yuan. Qian Kai's face was not red and his heart was not jumping. At this point, Qian Zonghua showed a sudden realization expression and thought to himself that he was waiting for me here. I only earn a little over 1,000 yuan a month, and I dare to deceive even 1,000 yuan. His courage is really getting stronger and stronger. Qian Zonghua said coldly, which classmate? What's his name? As he spoke, he looked around and was looking for his godson stick, ready to start a fight. Qian Kai quickly added, if you don't believe me, ask Teacher Chen in our class. Teacher Chen. Teacher English. Qian Zonghua brought him a middle school, knowing which subject the teacher was and how the teaching was going. Without further ado, he walked into the room and took out a table with the phone numbers and names of each subject teacher written on it. He found the Chen Wei column and sat down in the chair in front of the landline in the living room. He took a phone and dialed the number on the table. After about a while, the phone got through. Hey, Teacher Xiao Chen, I'm Qian Zonghua. Right. Not the principal, director. Ah, my son is also in your class, Qian Kai. I want to ask you something. He said he can speak French and said you know. Oh, is this the situation? Where, you are a top student from a foreign language university. How could he possibly speak better than you? He is so humble. Also, it's his situation. If you want to continue studying, would it be better to apply for classes in the provincial capital MMM? Yes, you're right. Wherever you go, it's all because you taught well. Alright, Teacher Chen, come and sit at home someday. I'll ask Su Feng to stir-fry some dishes. Ah, goodbye. After making the phone call, Qian Zonghua didn't look at him and sat there in a daze. After a while, he clapped his legs and stood up, flipped through the room for a while. When he came out, he was holding 1,000 yuan in his hand. After all, it was a huge sum of money, and he still felt a bit uneasy. He asked again, I'll accompany you. Qian Kaidan looked like he had suffered a great injustice and said, if you still don't believe it, find someone who knows French and I'll talk to him for a while. At this moment, Qian Zonghua didn't ask and simply handed the money to him. He became a little excited again and said, you have this talent, you must study hard. Study hard. The relieved old father gave his son half an hour of hard work and simple education, and then gave him 30 yuan for the bus fare. For the first time, he didn't read the news and hummed a tune behind his back as he left. Qian only then realized that he had gone out to become a saint in front of others. He secretly thought to himself that he must not wander around the yard during this period of time and be met by him and his old friends. Otherwise, it would definitely be the end of, "Come here, give you Uncle Zhang, Uncle Tan a few French words. It's all so big, I really don't want to lose face like this." In the evening, Su Feng also returned and had already met Qian Zonghua and a bunch of his old friends on the road. He learned the news and was surprised to find that Qian could speak French when he returned home. Su Feng is a college student majoring in English. After listening to him speak a few sentences of French, he felt that his accent was quite correct, but he couldn't understand it either. So he reminded him to be safe on the road and not take black cars. He went into the house to sleep, probably because his business was good today and he was very busy and tired. The next morning, Qian bought a ticket and changed into Nie Junlin's clothes before boarding the car in Linqing. He closed his eyes and regained his composure, with only 2 words in his mind. Start construction. Lin Qingdong stood up and headed straight to the small commodity market. After taking a look around, it seemed that there were not many rare things, and the prices of the attractive items were too expensive. He also headed straight to the freight center, where most things from other places passed through. There were also 2 shopping malls nearby. After strolling around the freight center for a while, I finally found a truck with a Zheji license plate, which should be from Yiwu. Watching the workers unload the goods, a pickup truck came to pick up the goods, but it couldn't finish a single trip. Qian then squatted here to observe. The destination seemed not far, and he made a round trip in 20 minutes. On the second trip, Qian finally picked up a car on the roadside and followed suit. Sure enough, it was only a stop away, and the car turned into the side of the road. The destination of that car is a farmer's market, which should be a warehouse inside. Qian then walked with his back to the side and saw workers unloading, unpacking, and stacking goods into the warehouse, with a boss looking like a commander. Qian Kai went to the nearby snack shop to buy a bag of yushi, and walked over to pass a message. "Brother, are you buying so many goods?" The person looked at him and found that Qian only looked like he was 20 years old, but he was dressed a bit old. He replied, "Are you here to discuss purchasing?" Qian just nodded. The person didn't hesitate, "Wait for me to unload the goods." As soon as Qian Kai heard about the scene, he remained silent and went across the street to buy a bowl of noodles to bring over. While eating, he watched as he directed the unloading. The worker was obviously very skilled. In about an hour, a truck of goods all entered the warehouse. The boss walked over with the car key and asked him to get on the car. On the way, the boss asked, "Did Lao Huang introduce me to this warehouse? Most people can't find it." Qian Kai smiled and didn't answer, then handed over another cigarette. "Well, it's better to keep a low profile." The boss noticed that he was silent and took the cigarette, nodding his head. At the same time, the old god handed over a business card before Qian glanced at him. This person's name was Qin Yunwei. After a while, we arrived at the small commodity market we had just visited and followed him to the entrance of a shop. However, when we arrived earlier, Chen Yunwei's store did not open. After opening the store door, Chen Yunwei waved his hand and said, "Look for yourself. There are samples of the goods here. After reading them, I will give you a quotation." After finishing speaking, he was not afraid of him taking things randomly, so he entered the inner room where the sound of a calculator was, micro zero, probably calculating. Qian just flipped through it for a while and selected a few samples he liked. He called Chen Yunwei and upon seeing them, Chen Yunwei was very impressed. "Little brother, you have a good eye. They are all branded goods." After finishing speaking, he pointed to an area and said, "This is from Blue Cat. Blue Cat knows, there are many specialty stores and brand products, and I have the most complete range of products here. Book bags, stationery, toys, and specialty stores all come to me for them." Pointing to another building block bag, he said, "That one, what's called Gao. Lego. A big brand, foreign, you can't get it in G province except for me. After saying that, he looked at the money again, and then he said, if my goods come from outside to pick up bulk goods, they are 100% authentic. I also sell them as real. For this bag, I sell 30 for bulk goods and 80 for bulk goods. The quality is exactly the same. Feel it yourself, but I don't want to bargain with the people introduced by Lao Huang. I don't want to sell it for 15 yuan, but I don't want to sell it for 100 pieces less. After speaking, he explained, you can also see how much I have purchased. If I take more and take less at the same price, I won't be able to sell all these things. Qian just nodded, knowing that his statement of selling others for 30 and selling oneself for 15 was certainly misleading, but the goods were indeed good and cheap. Okay Chen, I'll sell it in Z City, not in your local market. If you give me less, I'll bring you a few more when I sell well. Chen Yunwei replied, Z City. I just said your accent is not from this side, and there's nothing missing from this price. If you want it, why don't you just take it away? Otherwise, I'll close the door soon. Chen Yunwei is probably not someone who does retail business. His store is just an exhibition stand, and he opens it for people to see when there are big customers coming. He is probably not in the store usually. Alright, Chen. I won't bargain this time, but if you give me some small items, I may not be able to get 100 pieces. But I'll pick out items worth 1,000 yuan and leave. How long do you think I'll sell them out? I won't talk to you about items that are less than 2,000 yuan next time. Let's talk about it when we come back. Alright. Chen Yunwei is also a cheerful person. After talking for so long and not wanting to waste time, he agreed. Xian Kai chose a bunch of things, all from Blue Cat, and built a few high-end Lego products. After calculating, he put the change in another pocket for 1,020 yuan, and then calmly asked Chen Yunwei to calculate. He then took out 1,000 yuan in front of him and said with a puzzled expression, that's all. I just brought 1,000, and there's nothing more than a penny left. Let's wipe it with 0. Chen Gu, these goods are just evenly distributed among the merchants in my hand. After saying, he handed over a cigarette. This can't be wiped, can't it? 20, you can take a backpack less. Chen Yunwei refused. How about that? Look at me, both Lego and Blue Cat are complete sets. After dividing them, the merchants will come together to pick up the goods. How to divide one more or one less? A bowl of water should be even. I'll make it up to you next time, okay? Qian Kai worked tirelessly. Okay. Chen Yunwei waved his hand and took the money to start loading the goods. As it was about to be finished, Qian quickly picked up more than 10 exquisite hair clips, accessories, and other small items and threw them into the snake skin pocket. Brother, you. Chen Yunwei was a bit unhappy. Qian quickly handed over another cigarette, took the bag, left a phone number, and hurriedly left. It was already 3 p.m. when I returned to Z City, and without delay, Qian started working. He first went to the largest stationery store near Experimental Primary School and found the owner. He took out a Blue Cat backpack from the bag and carefully opened it. He placed it in front of the owner and took out a Lego toy, saying, "Boss, look at this. How is the quality?" The boss was about to rush someone and say they didn't want the goods, so he quickly added, "I can sell the things here with you. After selling them, I'll pay for them. For 80 backpacks sold outside, you can take 40, for toys you can take 75, for 120, for stationery boxes you can sell 15, and for pens you can sell 2 yuan. Can you give me half? If the things can't be sold, you can return them to me and I'll take them away." With this statement, the boss finally picked up the goods and looked at them carefully. He secretly thought to himself that the quality of this thing was indeed good, and it was also a brand. It was all top-notch goods. Could it be that they were stolen from somewhere? However, there is no need to pay in advance. Even if it is sold, you can still hold the payment for a few days to check the situation and dispel any doubts. People who sell these things year-round can tell the good or bad at a glance, but they still have to pay a price. I won't negotiate anything else, but the backpack is 35. You can leave it with me, if not, you can take it away. Okay, I'm at a loss, but you have to push me hard. Qian Kai had a heart-wrenching expression on his face. The boss thought to himself, I've seen many salespeople like you do, but the goods are really good and I can make a profit myself. Someone has really asked about this Blue Cat brand recently, and he said, that's for sure. In this way, Qian ran to 6 stores in the afternoon, and the last one came out in the evening. The goods were finally shipped out, and 5 of them were settled, while the remaining one refused at all costs. It was only after struggling that it was revealed that their purchasing manufacturer was a relative, and Qian had to leave in frustration, wasting a lot of time. Each household has placed a Lego high-end product. Of course, high-end products have higher profits. Toys priced at 45 yuan are priced at 120 yuan, which not only does not appear monotonous, but also demonstrates the quality of their supply. There is also a reason why Qian Kai fell in love with Blue Cat stationery and backpack. In his past life, Qian Kai was deeply impressed. With the broadcast of Blue Cat cartoons and TV commercials, Z City became saturated in big cities and the market sank, finally sparking a wave of Blue Cat fever. Many elementary school students take pride in buying Blue Cat stationery and even have some social attributes. From Qian Kai's memory, it will be popular for at least a year or two, and this trend will be driven by oneself in advance. In fact, there are many ways to make money in my memory, but there are not many that are suitable for me. If I want to sell well without interfering, and not be intercepted by dealers, the quality and price of the goods are fundamental. I also need to ensure the concealment of the goods. After thinking about it, goods from Yiwu are also the best choice. Overcoming the challenge of finding hidden boutique sources and filtering out popular products, earning money will be much easier in the future. Returning home, Qian Zonghua waited in the living room. Not many people have mobile phones these days, and even a student wouldn't have money, which means even if it's late and money hasn't returned home yet, he can only wait. Qian immediately explained the payment situation and praised how the foreign teacher explained it in simple and easy terms. He also said a few French sentences to express his gains today, which made Qian Zonghua feel confused. Suddenly, Qian Zonghua felt that the money was not spent in vain. In the future, using the excuse of being too tired to drive, he said that he had eaten outside and went back to his room. If Qian Zonghua was too close, he could still hear Qian muttering words. It has to be learning, it has to be learning. 111111111111111 the author said, updating is really tiring, vote for it. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Hu Wei. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Hu Wei Z City, Sunday. Qian just slept in, maybe because he was busy and tired yesterday and didn't set the alarm. When he got up, it was already 9 o'clock. He took a shower, and the water heater kept getting cold and hot, making him feel the malice of this era. I found a denim jacket and draped it over my body, tidied it up and went out. I picked up the snake skin pocket that I had thrown back yesterday at the corner of the first floor to load goods, and wandered to a nearby abandoned demolition site. This used to be a unit like a grain management office, but it has now been demolished, but it has not been used for anything else, leaving behind a lot of waste bricks and tiles. Qian Kai was picking and choosing inside, finding some neat ones, putting them in his pocket and putting them in a dozen or so yuan. The bag was heavy, but fortunately Qian Kai enjoyed exercising and his body was also very good. He could barely walk back leisurely. When he arrived downstairs, he placed the bag in the coal shed at the corner of the stairs and went upstairs back home. At noon, Luo Yu called home and scheduled to meet at the east gate of the park at 2 p.m. Qian Kai estimated that there was still a small time slot besides the distance, so it was not too late. He put on a denim jacket and went downstairs to sneak out his pocket. He took the bus to the east gate of the park to find a hidden place to hide his snake skin pocket and went to a farmer's market a mile away. The farmer's market may not be as quiet as it will be in 20 years. Fresh supermarkets are not yet everywhere, and people are much more diligent and frugal. Bargaining and nitpicking are the norm in the farmer's market, and it can be said that there is a lot of noise. I have 40 yuan in my pocket, which is the purchasing power of this era. If I invite Luo Yu and her friends to a restaurant for a meal of 6 dishes and 1 soup, it would be enough. However, if I come to the farmer's market, I can buy 8 or 9 kilograms of pork. Qian Kai walked around with his hands on his back, and when he came out half an hour later, he was already carrying a pile of barbecue charcoal, wire, seasoning, wooden skewers, brushes, and meat that the boss had cut. I spent 28.4 yuan. If it weren't for spending some money on barbecue items, just buying meat and pork ribs would only cost more than 10 yuan. When I returned to the park, I had already seen 2 beautiful figures. It goes without saying that they were beautiful, and the youthful energy emanating from their laughter and conversation brought countless glances back. After Qian approached, he saw the girl next to Luo Yu clearly and began to gasp for breath, feeling a bit anxious. He doesn't know if he's excited or completely nervous. When I first saw this face in my past life, I remembered my seductive eyes closed with shyness, my red lips opened with laughter. The graceful figure hidden under his loose sportswear made him restless countless times. Luo Yu naturally saw Qian Kai's pig brother appearance and smiled proudly. How about it, I'll tell you what, beautiful woman. It's cheaper for you. Let's invite you to dinner. This remark made the girl blush a bit, but after some hesitation, the girl walked over first and smiled politely. Hello, my name is Hu Wei. After speaking, he looked at the boy in front of him, especially his eyes. The way he looked at himself was a bit off. It seems like there is a scorching fire in my eyes, trying to melt myself. Even Luo Yu next to her felt a bit off. Do you know each other? Qian couldn't bear to turn around and walk away. Hu Wei. Hu Wei, how could he not know him? He wanted to go to Shanghai for the sake of the person in front of him. Including my past life, I haven't seen you in 6 years. She seems to have disappeared in the past 6 years, and only then did Qian want to go back to Shanghai and find her. But he dare not go. After the age of 30, his wealth gradually became enviable, and he had seen delicate and graceful beauties. He had a delicate heart that had been in love with him for many years. After a few years, he had tried to fall in love, nor had he been moved by his heart. But if he had gone crazy for anyone, only Hu Wei. For Qian Kai, this was a name engraved on his heart with a razor. He graduated and joined the military at the age of 22, was promoted at the age of 23, and was transferred to Shanghai the same year to meet her. She was in the upper horn, while he was in the lower horn. However, as long as he had the opportunity to go on vacation, the only thing he had to do was to meet Hu Wei. At the age of 27, he submitted a marriage report and was inexplicably ordered to change jobs. However, in the same year, he obtained a certificate from Hu Wei and took her to France. At the age of 33, he worked hard for 6 years to start a business. One night after returning to China, he was almost destroyed by the person who claimed to be Hu Wei's sister-in-law, and was forced to divorce and return to Ji province. Hu Wei occupies 2/3 of his youth, and he is also Hu Wei's entire summer. In the 12 years that can be said in just 2 sentences, I don't know how much excitement, madness, and despair have occurred. I tried to calm my mind, but my mind was in chaos and I couldn't find any good reason to cover it up for a moment. I could only say something randomly. Oh. Hello. Qian Kai walked straight ahead, forgetting to politely respond to his name and forgetting that his eyes were red, feeling that he might not be able to appear elegant in a short period of time. In her past life, she followed her to France despite family opposition, got married, and due to her own cowardice, she couldn't bear the pressure and didn't want her to suffer poverty or divorce her anymore. She left with a gloomy heart, leaving a large gap in his heart with blood and flesh. When he was reborn, he wondered if God had already taken her away. Let yourself stop thinking and just live your life this way, don't mess with yourself anymore. But she appeared so early 6 years ago. Perhaps God didn't think so. He arranged himself here and let himself meet her. Perhaps he sympathized with this pitiful person and gave himself a chance to change his fate. I am no longer the young man I used to be, I am not so easy to play with. Thinking of this, Qian's heartbeat gradually calmed down, his footsteps slowed down, and his smile slowly returned to his face. He turned to look at them. Sorry, my uncle passed away recently. I just saw someone who looked very similar to him and felt a bit sad. Money, who had no moral bottom line, had to pull out his most disliked relative and uncle to die in order to reverse his impolite image just now. When he said this, Money was not at all uneasy because from elementary school to junior high school, this uncle had skipped classes, seriously ill, and sacrificed several times for himself. Upon hearing this, the two women suddenly realized that their previous misunderstandings and doubts about him had also dissipated. Luo Yu comforted him repeatedly not to feel sad, as people have their own lives, ages, illnesses, and deaths. Even Hu Wei, stranger, responded with a few words. Qian just waved his hand, indicating that it was just a moment of sadness. In fact, the uncle's family was not very kind to him, and now there is nothing more. As he walked, Luo Yu asked him what the bag in his hand was for. Only then did Qian realize that he had forgotten to take the brick due to his momentary excitement. He asked them to wait in place for a while and then ran back all the way to retrieve the snake skin bag. When the two women saw Qian Kai again, his denim clothes were covered in dust, he was carrying large and small bags in his left hand, and he was dragging a snake skin pocket in his right hand. It can be said that he was only one yellow safety helmet away from a young migrant worker who came to work in the city. The two women couldn't help but laugh when they saw it. They walked up and took the things in his hand one by one, and only after looking at them did they know what was inside. You're planning to treat us to this. The meat is raw, how do we eat it? Luo Yu looked at Hu Wei with a hint of confusion and embarrassment, but she said that her childhood, talented brother, wanted to treat them to delicious food. Didn't I tell you, barbecue? Qian Kai walked and talked, as if he had explained, but it seemed like he hadn't. At first meeting Hu Wei, there was a hint of forced disconnection in intelligence, and I didn't listen much. Perhaps it was due to the accumulated 2,336 days of drunkenness before my rebirth that I suddenly felt a bit overwhelmed. After listening, Hu Wei pursed his lips and chuckled lightly. It's barbecue, right? Wild barbecue. The sound is like the sound of a warbler, and to Qian Kai it is like a bell. Hu Wei probably didn't know how powerful the boy in front of her was when she spoke. If she knew, with her mischievous personality, she would definitely say a few more words. Qian nodded and looked at the scenery around him. Suddenly, he felt a little excited, regardless of whether the people next to him thought he was sick or not. He expressed his feelings. Chop the young peaches and ruin their scenery, cook the parrot and serve me a cup of soup. Upon hearing this, Hu Wei chuckled and replied, in Qin Yuan Chun. Hate, such a beautiful environment doesn't conform to the artistic conception. Who do you hate so much? Qian Kaiming secretly vented a sentence and felt a bit too neurotic. He smiled and pretended to be foolish, saying, is that what I mean? I haven't memorized many poems about food. The scenery is so beautiful today, and I still want to add a few lines of elegance. When Luo Yudeng jumped over and stood between the two, he said, You're looking at people and parents who look good, you're having a wild heart. With a resentful expression, he looked like he was protecting Hu Wei. Young man, she is the learning god and top beauty of Linqing No. 1 middle school. If you drag her words in front of her, you will suffer. Xian Kai frowned and said, "Little brat, my brother stopped calling you and even teased me. He really treated Luo Yu like his own younger sister since childhood." "No, she's her own sister. They even formed a friendship when they were young. She's Lao Lu, Luo Lao Lu, and I'm the money boss." Of course, speaking up at this moment also doesn't want Hu Wei to misunderstand anything. "We're on the same level." Upon hearing this, Luo Yu was immediately dissatisfied. As they chatted and arrived at the riverbank, the three people selected a boat. The administrator said that giving 10 yuan would allow them to row the boat for the afternoon. Qian and Luo Yu both understood that the price was not something they knew, but in local dialect, 5 yuan could also be negotiated. Say 3 yuan, then turn around and leave. When business is not good, someone may come to pull you. But Hu Wei was beside him, with enough money in his pocket, so he surprisingly didn't bargain. He happily gave 10 yuan and negotiated to put the big and small packages in the charging booth. The administrator handed him a set of oars and said not to throw them into the water, or else he would lose money. After boarding the ship, Luo Yu gave money and gave a, "You understand, look," saying something. "Hello, generous," Luo Yu teased him. I thought about it and added, "Don't worry, I'll supply you later, count me." As soon as I heard the money, I waved my hand to indicate that I didn't need it. However, Hu Wei couldn't understand what they were saying and handed Luo Yu a puzzled look. Luo Yu smiled and reached out to cover her mouth, saying something in Hu Wei's ear. Hu Wei laughed while listening, and his face turned red. Having served in the military is the only way to make a good money, and the subject of kayaking has been practiced in military emergency training in my past life. The oaring posture is very professional. Luo Yu praised repeatedly, while Hu Wei remained silent and just stared. While drawing and chatting, Luo Yu mentioned that she and Hu Wei are pen pals who have been in contact for over 2 years. In this era, most pen pals are made through introductions from friends, and both of them request to find a girl, so a mutual friend introduced them to each other. Qian nodded suddenly after listening. He knew why Hu Wei made pen pals. Her family was very strict with her, and she was hardly allowed to make friends during her school days. She also had to keep a distance from her classmates, so she should be very lonely. Qian Kai believed that if it weren't for the fact that Hu Wei's family had investigated Hu Wei's pen pal and found out that Luo Yu was a well-studied girl, they wouldn't have let her come this time. Qian Kai took out 2 exquisite hair cards and gave them to the 2 people, indicating that they were small gifts bought on the way. Luo Yu took the gift and said that Kai Gu was becoming more and more good at being a person. He took the 2 hair cards and handed one to Hu Wei. Hu Wei felt a bit embarrassed, but after looking at the money, he didn't think he had any malicious intentions, so he accepted it. After playing with it for a while, Luo Yu exclaimed, "I bought it all over the house with romance, isn't it cheap?" Qian just paid attention and waved his hand, saying it was not valuable, without further explanation. The 3 of them started talking about college again. Luo Yu said he wanted to take the Fudan exam, but Qian just glanced at Hu Wei and said he wanted to go to Shanghai Jiaotong University, but his grades were too poor. He worked hard in his senior year to see more. Luo Yu doesn't know the specific level of Qian Kai's current academic performance, but she remembers that some uncles and aunts in the hospital said it wasn't very good, and she didn't say anything after hearing it. Upon hearing this, Hu Wei hesitated and said that he should go to Shanghai, but he had not yet booked a school. At this moment, Luo Yu also happily said, okay. It is said that people in Shanghai are more exclusive, and everyone can still help each other when they go. Money is a bit speechless, and the gap between Hu Wei's family and himself and Luo Yu's family may not be suitable for discussing assistance. It should be assistance. After chatting for a while, Luo Yu said she was hungry. After discussing for a while, the 3 of them decided to go back. After more than 10 minutes, we arrived at the shore. The money was just returned to the oars, and I took them back with my things to find a place far away that no one cared about, so I started building the stove. Build the bricks according to the specifications of a simple stove. In this era, there were no ready-made barbecue grills, but money only bought a few long iron wires, which were stretched and wrapped around the rotating head. Then, they wrapped around the bricks a few times and pressed on, creating a simple barbecue grill. I picked up some leaves and branches to start the fire, lit the barbecue charcoal, washed the cut meat again, brushed it with oil, and started grilling. The process was very organized, which aroused curiosity from the two girls. "Brother Kai, why do you have so much? You have to row a boat and build a stove. What else can you do?" Luo Yu blinked her eyes and said. Qian Kai had to explain, "When I was a child, I took you upstairs to the wall and fished in the yard and pond. Apart from studying, I didn't know anything. Maybe I was just suitable for being a wild child." Hu Wei smiled and said, "This is different from catching fish and shrimp. You didn't seem to be self-taught when you rowed and built a stove just now. It's a bit like you've been trained in the army." Qian was taken aback for a moment, thinking to himself that he had boasted and forgot that there was a military compound growing up here. Qian Kai regained his composure and said calmly, "Have you discovered all of this?" "I participated in a youth training camp after graduating from the high school entrance examination, and all of these were learned in the training camp." After listening, Luo Yu felt both envy and regret. "Kai Gu, you really know a lot. I envy you so much. My dad is strict and doesn't let me play. He even forces me to learn piano, which is really annoying." After speaking, Luo Yu suddenly remembered something and felt a little excited. "By the way, I just heard from you that you are in the top-tier class, right? I heard that there is a classmate in your class who speaks French very well and English is also very good, isn't it true?" Hu Wei listened curiously and looked at Qian Kai. After listening to what they just said, there is now another student with dual foreign language skills emerging. It seems that there are quite a few experts in this year's Z City No. 1 middle school. In fact, Hu Wei is also very competitive. Cough, cough, eat meat. Qian Kai brushed the barbecue ingredients while giving them the grilled meat. "You speak quickly," Luo Yu said as she ate, but was not satisfied with the money before changing the topic. Hu Wei next to him seemed to understand something and tentatively asked, "Vous parlez français?" When Luo Yu asked Qian Kai didn't want to say that he was afraid of her asking questions and exposing himself too much. There was a French-speaking person sitting next to him, but he wasn't as easy to fool as his father. He and Hu Wei got to know each other at a French interactive corner in Shanghai, where Hu Wei learned some French basics in high school. At this moment, Hu Wei asked, and he couldn't pretend to be foolish anymore. "If you pack too much, it won't be round in the future." Yes, the atmosphere is 1/10 awkward." "I don't know, is that you?" "Hu Wei, do you also know?" "Do you all know?" "Just me. I also want to learn." Luo Yu changed his quiet image, with a mournful expression, feeling abandoned. Qian Kai and Hu Wei glanced at each other. Hu Wei felt that Qian Kai didn't want to mention this and didn't ask much. He just smiled lightly at him, and Qian Kai also smiled and nodded as a gesture. I don't know which way the sunshine happened to pass by, and it sprinkled on Qian Kai's face. This smile made his face, which was originally a bit childish, suddenly profound. Hu Wei, who would laugh back and forth every time he saw this kind of old-fashioned Taiwanese drama scene where the male lead pretended to be old-fashioned, was actually caught in the eye for a moment in this special era. Neither of them answered Luo Yu, lingering a hint of tacit understanding. Qian Kai stared at Hu Wei's slightly red nose, staring blankly. He thought of having this girl before, feeling a bit disappointed. Then he remembered the woman who easily pushed him to the corner. When she appeared in front of him, she said that casual sentence. "I am Hu Wei's aunt. What do you do naturally for her good? You need to recognize your own position." From your world to hers, how many generations of people need to work hard to climb? How many generations? I secretly clenched my fist and would tell her one day. A generation is enough. I know many people don't like this chapter, there's nothing to say about it, but there's no need to discuss reasonable or unreasonable things here. As the plot unfolds, each character has a detailed explanation of what they do for what reason. The latest chapter has already completed this large storyline, perhaps cliché, but there must be unexpected parts. There is no groundless, God of War returns, plot. Although the female protagonist's family has raised the basic line a bit, it is guaranteed to be written based on life and the thoughts of normal people. At the end of each plot, there will be a reason, which is complex human nature. There are no divine characters in this book, including the protagonist. Everyone has different selfishness, just some ordinary people with ordinary thoughts. Don't expect too much. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Third Brother. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Third Brother. Over the next hour, Hu Wei and the two of them got to know each other well and gradually became more intimate, retaining only a small amount of reserve, and even taking the initiative to ask questions. Ask Luo Yu who the funny classmates he mentioned in his letter were, what was the boldest thing Qian Kai did when he was a child, and what was the harshest beating he received when he was a child. It seems that no one has talked to her about these things. She is very curious about everything, and it seems that this is the last time she communicates with her peers. There is an urgency in her words that goes against her calm temperament. Qian naturally knew what kind of soul was contained in this charming body, passionate and brave, competitive yet considerate. She can enjoy life even if she takes a step back, without having to work with him to calculate the costs of starting a business. She is also willing to silently wait for money to work hard for her, encouraging and understanding at the same time. However, the indifference of the concept of family affection and the excessive expectations of the family bring more pressure to her, and indeed rarely give her the feeling of being loved and cared for. The strict control at home also closed the channel for her to feel the freedom of friendship and love. As it was getting late, the three of them packed up and walked to the entrance of the park to say goodbye. Luo Yu was actually on the same path as Qian Kai, who stared blankly at Hu Wei without asking for her contact information. He knows where she lives, which class, and even where she will live in the future, but there is no way to have an unobstructed direct conversation with her. But he also knew that if he followed the path of his past life, he would definitely be able to find her. He knows at what time he will encounter her and how to move her, and at that time, he hopes he has the power to resist obstacles. Hu Wei also felt a slight ripple in her heart. The boy gave her a slightly different feeling. There seemed to be some unique way of communication between the two. Although he was speaking seriously, he told her with his eyes that this sentence was fake, you don't have to believe it. For the first time, she experienced the rich information in a person's eyes, but in the end, that layer of secret could never be revealed. She was a little curious about this boy, but there was also the bond of Luo Yu, and neither of them mentioned how long they would contact each other again. On the return bus. Brother Kai, what do you think of Hu Wei? Luo Yu asked as she got into the car, and now she took the initiative to call him brother. It's pretty good. The money was just perfunctory. I think the way you look at her must be interesting to her, Luo Yu persisted. Who's not interested in such a beautiful girl? Qian pretended to be indifferent. You know I didn't mean that, said Luo Yu, who was physically disabled and determined. What does that mean? Money pulled in the opposite direction. I think you're very boring, Luo Yu was very dissatisfied. What you think is definitely not what I mean, so don't guess my meaning casually. Chinese Level 8 exam, Qian Kai's 3 consecutive moves, ending the battle. When getting off the car, Luo Yu made an unprecedented move by giving him a middle finger to show that he no longer respected him in the future. Qian Kai smiled, you don't even know the story between me and her, how could you possibly know what I mean? Skipped a boring night. And boring Mondays and Tuesdays. On Monday and Tuesday, after 2 consecutive days of review, Qian only managed to refine the content that could be improved in a short period of time. For the rest, he gave up before preparing for the midterm exam, focused on freedom first, and discussed everything else later. Nie Junlin has been a bit angry with him these past few days. Because Nie Junlin felt that the delicate balance of the poor student alliance between the two had been disrupted, Qian Kai surprisingly did not take the initiative to take him to the internet cafe to play StarCraft, and even refused his offer to take him to see a beautiful girl in the first year of high school during the break. He is actually studying. Money has just fallen. He needs to kick the money out of this glorious and great organization. Qian Kai lowered his head to read and could feel the negative emotions +1 coming from Nie Junlin's seat across 3 people. He is also very helpless, really unable to persuade. The third brother's dislike of learning is deeply rooted, and his family's 3 brothers probably have a hereditary dislike of learning. His father Nie Dejuan is engaged in excavation and transportation, and this industry is considered a model of hiding dirt at this time. Generally, his education is not high, and his father is one of the leaders. He is 4 years short of graduating from elementary school. His father's life manifesto is that reading is useful as a ball. This kind of tough family can cultivate 3 college students because their mothers want face. In fact, the third student, who is at the end of the top class in number 1 middle school but has not yet reached the bottom of his class, is already one of the top cultural figures in his family. His 2 older brothers have a much more brilliant and remarkable historical record in number 1 middle school than him. The third generation had a very difficult life. They had some money at home, but they couldn't withstand the 3 brothers' fierce competition for defeat. His father also had a quarrel with someone for gambling, broke their head, and was arrested. Along with many other incidents, he was punished for several crimes. After 6 years, everyone who came out grew old and never recovered. The third brother also spent 2 years wandering in Shanghai with Qian, who had just changed his job. He found it boring and got married in Go Home. It wasn't until later that Qian got divorced and returned to Ji province with his family assets to help his third son. When we met, the third brother was a bit bald. After the money explained his intention, the third brother said not to hit him in the face. He had food to eat. Sangu said that he came today to treat you to dinner and welcome you, and he also wanted to hear you shout. Sangu, Qian said, okay, Sangu. Sangu wants face too much, so Qian decided to take him to the stationery store to collect money tonight and also buy him a bottle of hair care shampoo. In the afternoon after school, the homeroom teacher Guo Shihai had not even left the classroom when Qian stood up and walked straight to Nie Junlin to hold him. Guo Shihai shook his head when he saw this scene, and the couple got together again. Money doesn't dare to be unhappy. This guy is as free as the wind after school. You can see him running frantically on the playground, running towards the door when the main army just leaves the classroom. Today is the last class adjustment for the homeroom teacher. The third student is a bit restrained, otherwise he won't be caught. Let's go, take you to a good place. Qian Kai clearly stated his intention. I made an appointment to play interstellar games this afternoon, and I placed a bet of 5 yuan each. Nie Junlin refused to do anything. You can earn at least 200 yuan by going with me today, the money enticed. When the two walked out shoulder to shoulder, Nie Junlin never expected that these 200 yuan were referring to Bitcoin on November 10, 2021. Qian Kai took the borrowed clothes from his backpack and returned them to Nie Junlin. On the way, he explained in detail the operation of the entire chain and the precautions, with the key being not to expose the student identity. So the third person turned to look at him and asked him why he was carrying his backpack. He felt very embarrassed, and Qian finally realized that the third person still had the ability to draw inferences from others, and this person was not particularly naive. When the two of them arrived at the stationery store at Experimental Primary School, the boss welcomed them out. The boss pulled the money and said somewhat mysteriously, "Brother, where did you get this guy?" "Don't inquire, the factory director is my relative and a legitimate manufacturer. The money has already figured out the situation. The goods should have been sold, but they may have been sold quite quickly. The boss wants to contact his superiors." The boss took a stack of money and counted out 535 yuan to hand to him, telling him that he still wanted it, the faster the better. However, the money didn't want to agree too readily, so he said he had to queue up for the goods and wait for his news. The next batch of goods also needed to be paid first. The boss saw that he was also a serious salesperson, so he agreed. Leaving the store, I headed straight to the next one. On the way, I calculated that Blue Cat Stationery should receive 1,854 yuan and Toy should receive 375 yuan. I also told Nie Junlin not to speak on the way and to pay attention. Except for Hangshao and Experimental Primary School, which are sold out, only more than half of them were sold at First Primary School, Second Primary School, and Qingshui Primary School, and none of the toys were sold, which is slightly lower than expected. However, it is considered normal. The ability to accept trendy things is directly related to economic ability, and most parents of Hangshao and Experimental Primary School children have more money than those of other schools. I received a total of 1,420 yuan and only then did I collect the unsold goods. I am preparing to take them to the Experimental Primary School stationery store to sell and collect the cash first. When receiving the goods, negotiate with the three bosses to bring over the new goods for sale once they arrive. After collecting and checking the watch, it was almost 7 o'clock. I found a phone booth and called home to say that I would be studying late at school and that the midterm exam was coming soon and I needed to review. Qian Zonghua didn't easily believe it. He asked which teacher would teach evening self-study and asked by phone. Qian Kai said there's no need to ask, the mid-term exam will be decided. Old Qian expressed his admiration for Xiao Qian's confident and resolute attitude towards death. He said, "Okay, if you don't do well in the midterm exam, I'll settle the accounts with you." Hanging up the phone and taking Nie Junlin to the famous, romantic Full House jewelry store near the pedestrian street, it was already dark. After entering the store, I found that the business was indeed booming. Most of the people who came were couples, and the boys were very generous in their hands. I only took a hair clip and headband with money and carefully compared my products. I found that the workmanship was somewhat similar, but my style was obviously more trendy. Their products are nothing more than butterflies and flowers. They also have cartoon characters and imitation diamond designs, which are brighter in color. Their purchase price is only 1.2 yuan per piece, but seeing them sell at a price of 6 to 8 yuan, this profit is terrifying, at least enough for 4 or 5 middlemen to make a profit difference. "Boss, I have wholesale belts and hair cards here. Take a look." Afraid of being rejected by the boss, Qian didn't wait for a response before putting the goods in front of the boss. The boss picked it up and looked at it, then threw it back on the table and said, "Are you from the art house? I've seen you before." Oh, he thought he was a competitor who came to cause trouble and even cheated me, that's why he thought about money. "We are directly sold by Lincheng manufacturer." "Boss, please take a look at the goods first." Qian Kai quickly spoke in Lin Cheng's accent. The boss took a closer look at him and found that there was really no clue. He then picked up a diamond-like style and looked for it on his shelf. He found no similar style and compared it, thinking that this business could be done. The boss asked the waiter to guard the checkout counter and then called them into the inner room. After some bargaining, the final price was set at 2.5 yuan per piece, but there must be more than half of the imitation diamonds, 500 pieces at a time, payment upon seeing the goods, and the money promised to arrive within 2 days. After coming out, he took out his phone book from his pocket and called Qin Yunwei from Lincheng. He discussed the shipment quantity of stationery, toys, and accessories, about 2,000 yuan, and agreed to come and pick them up the day after tomorrow. After coming out, Nye Junlin reminded him. On Friday the day after tomorrow, you told people to pick up the goods the day after tomorrow and you didn't attend class. Qian Kai looked at the third person in confusion. Yes, I have a class, you go. Why not go directly to the post office to make a payment and have him send it over? Nye Junlin asked. He doesn't mind taking sick leave, he often does it, but it's a bit troublesome. Qian Kai was speechless and said, Are you stupid? How many times have you been doing business with him? Trust him so much. There is also a channel issue that needs to be kept confidential. At least 2 months before we can establish a stable cooperative relationship, we need to personally go and do this. How about whether you do this or not? The travel expenses will be reported and the profit will be counted towards you. At this moment, Sang-gu was not someone who lacked money to spend, even the wealthiest class among the entire middle school students. He watched all the way and calculated in his heart, but couldn't figure it out, so he had to say. Your profit is quite high, but your business is not big either. It's already enough for me to spend a month's pocket money. Qian Kai smiled and said, You can work for a month first, and then you can talk crazy when you're done. Alright, let's do it. I haven't made any money yet, so I can be considered a little boss. Nye Junlin was also single, and after saying that, he remembered something and added, But you can't influence me to do the right thing. What's the point? Qian was a bit surprised, as he seemed to have some knowledge about his brother. Sun Qing knows, the second to last student in class 6. The dog named me Vegetable Chicken and I bet him that StarCraft would beat him down within a month. If we lost, I would give him 100 yuan. If we won, he called me Dad. If you make a decision against your ancestors and change your name to Ma Tianyuan, I believe you are doing the right thing. Who is Ma Tianyuan? Nye Junlin was somewhat puzzled. Qian rolled his eyes and didn't want to bird him anymore. He handed him the money and started arranging work. Tomorrow, you will give the unsold goods to the owner of the Hangshao stationery store to use up and retrieve the money to purchase. Over the weekend, I will mobilize your big brother's relationship and find 4 or 5 graduates who don't have a job and want to make money for me. Those who can speak, those who work in society don't want to, and those who work in society want face. They won't be able to do this job. Are you not going tomorrow? Nye Junlin felt a bit unfair. I asked you to go because I wanted you to be familiar with them. You are also a shareholder. What if they don't recognize you in the future? Money has found a suitable reason for oneself to be lazy. Okay, this matter is easy to handle. Within a week, I got to know those bosses and played mahjong at the same table. Nye Junlin felt deeply trusted and patted his chest. Qian just rolled his eyes. I just stretched lazily and thought to myself that all the money I earn from this job is hard work. I have to deceive a few people to get started. Later, I went to a barbecue stall with Nye Junlin and had a meal together, and asked Nye Junlin to bring the goods home. Before leaving, Qian suddenly remembered something he had forgotten. He said to Lao San, Why don't you buy some ginger and apply it on your head to wash it? Look at your oily hair. The third person touched his head and said to wash his hair. What kind of ginger should he apply? Qian Kai said you should listen to my brother's advice, as it can help you become more masculine. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Storm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Storm. On Thursday morning, Qian was just about to leave when he was intercepted by Qian Zhonghua, who said he also had to go to school. There was a morning meeting today. Qian just knew that the old man would only say so if he wanted to talk to himself. He was also a little heartache that he found such a blunt excuse. The old man has just been transferred to number 1 middle school and only focuses on administration for the time being. He only starts leading classes in the new academic year, has meetings at 9 a.m., and leaves at 6:30 a.m. I don't know what he can do in the office for such a long time. The two of them discussed and decided to take the 11th bus to school, and on the way, they could also buy some steamed buns at Fuxianjuan. This Fuxianjuan is a restaurant, but the owner is also a quick-witted person who rented the restaurant storefront for the morning to a vendor selling steamed buns. Nearby people all know that Fuxianjuan sells steamed buns in the morning and starts as a restaurant at noon, but unfortunately, the steamed buns made by the owner of the steamed bun shop in the morning are really delicious and their fame has spread. Therefore, many people come to Fuxianjuan to buy steamed buns. But this raises a question. Many people came to ask in the afternoon, saying that your family's steamed buns are very famous, boss. Give me a whole basket of steamed buns. The boss saw that this was also considered a business, so the restaurant also started steaming and selling steamed buns. However, the steamed buns in this restaurant were just average, and many people lived far away. After finishing their buns in the afternoon, they returned and said that Fuxianjuan's buns were just like that, not as delicious as the ones downstairs. As a result, Fuxianjuan's buns became a fan, with high and low reviews. The luck is not far away. The two bought 2 baskets of Schrodinger's steamed buns, and 2 cups of soybean milk, and continued to walk to the school. The old man began to have nothing to say. It seems that the second year of senior high school is halfway through the next semester. Do you think about how to go in the future? The old man sucked a mouthful of soybean milk. Shanghai Jiao Tong University, right? Qian Kai realized that since he had asked this question, it would be better to speak frankly, so that in the future, he wouldn't have to rely on his good grades and have to fill out the list. If nothing unexpected happens, Hu Wei will also go to Jiaotong University, so Qian Kai doesn't want to make unnecessary mistakes. The old man gave him a deep glance and said, I know when I asked you to take the Tsinghua and Peking University entrance exams as a child, I wanted you to have a lofty goal. But now, with your grades, you also have to face reality. I am discussing real-life issues with you now, don't talk to me falsely. I'm not joking with you. Shanghai Jiaotong University, I definitely want to go. Qian Kai widened his eyes and confirmed once again. The old man's expression was a bit difficult as he said, My child, Shanghai Jiaotong University doesn't like to pay high fees. I've been supporting you behind your back all these years. I've been in top-tier classes in elementary, middle, and high school, but this time I can only rely on you. Don't expect me to help you, I don't have the ability to transfer to Shanghai Jiaotong University. Qian sighed, the old man's mind is really big. I know, can you not treat me like a fool? When I said I went to Jiaotong University, I was definitely admitted, not paid high fees, nor did I go to Jiaotong University to be a security guard. After talking about money, I felt a bit resentful that iron cannot be made into steel. This old man even dares to think about paying high fees to go to Shanghai and Shanghai Jiaotong University, nor does he believe he can pass the exam. When I thought of this, I grabbed a Xiaolongbao and threw it into my mouth. It was too hot. I spit it out and threw it back into the bag, with the sizzling, sizzling, sizzling air in my mouth. The old man looked at it and was overjoyed. He thought to himself that the material had arrived, and immediately put it into practice. You see, it's like this steamed bun. It's too hot for you to eat, right? It's better to blow it cold and eat something cold. It's not as delicious, but not too hot. The same goes for filling out college entrance exams. Of course, if you can just eat something hot, delicious, and not too hot, that's the best. Upon hearing this, Qian suddenly remembered what Aunt Hu Wei had said to him. What's wrong, old man? Do you also think I can't eat steamed buns? Qian Kai immediately grabbed the steamed bun and stuffed it into his mouth. After taking a few breaths, he started eating it again, making him scream strangely. I'm going to eat something hot. The old man was also a bit angry and said, Your grades in the local normal school entrance exam are not even impressive. Are you going to take the exam at Jiaotong University? I think you want roasted sweet potatoes. Qian just saw that the old man was about to get angry and felt a bit impulsive. Originally, Hu Wei had nothing to do with his father, so he shouldn't have vented his anger on him. So he whispered softly again, I know, you don't believe me, but I did work hard and don't want to give up. After all the midterm exams are over, let's discuss based on our grades, okay? The old man, seeing his confidence, also ignited a glimmer of hope and nodded in satisfaction. Okay, if you're in high spirits, feel free to mention anything you need for learning. I'll just smash the pot and sell the iron to satisfy you. Qian nodded and remembered something. It's almost May now, so he hurriedly said, if I do well in the mid-term exam, can you take me to Uncle San's house to play computer games? The old man immediately became angry again upon hearing this. Your attitude, thinking about playing computer games every day, it's strange to do well in exams. Money was helpless, thinking to himself that the old man had misunderstood again. Uncle, do you know how kind I am to you? In Class 7 of Grade 1 high school, the atmosphere today was particularly oppressive. Math teacher Huang Bing became very angry because the results of the recent math in class exam were out. The error rate of the 23 major questions reached 95.31%, which means that out of 64 people, a total of 3 people completed them correctly. Huang Bing is not a person who eats idle food. He teaches mathematics in the top science class of the second and third years of high school alone. However, his ability is impressive. He has a hooked nose, single eyelids, and is from Hunan. He usually walks with his head up, and his temper can be described as explosive. Moreover, he usually looks down on people in the southwest region and threatens, you people from Ji province and Sichuan province are not very active except for playing mahjong. When I fly over the southwest, I can hear the sound of mahjong below. People like Qian Kai and Nye Junlin, who are backdoor students, can be called trash in class. But I can also feel that he really didn't target anyone, because when a good student stumbled and didn't do well in the exam, he also scolded him like this. Even the top-ranked scholar Yang Rui, who scored 142 in the exam, could be trained by him for 20 minutes, saying that if he loses 1 point in the college entrance examination, don't say he taught him. Only the principal in the entire school can make him work hard, and the vice principal is not very effective. It can be imagined that cursing is extremely unpleasant for such a person. He pointed out the top 20 names on the math score sheet, saying that these people are all irreparable and have let down the school's expectations. All the pastries that were held by teachers before were scolded as smelly pickled Chinese cabbage, and those behind more than 20 people did not deserve to be scolded by him, making them a little nervous all morning. In the 4th class in the morning, the music teacher was sick again, and no teacher took the initiative to substitute for the class. It was changed to a self-study class. Because Nye Junlin was going to deliver goods and collect money at noon, he felt a bit uneasy about the money. So he discussed changing seats with his desk mate and explained it to him. The two of them discussed quietly. Bang! Lu Yong, who was full of attributes such as class teacher and surveillance, various subject teachers' dog legs, and a whistleblower, slammed the table and stood up, pointing at the two brothers and loudly accusing them, Nye Junlin, Qian Kai, can you be quiet? If you don't learn, others still need to learn. Don't be like a mouse poop that spoils a pot of soup. Lu Yong also belonged to the first class that Huang Bing called unworthy of being scolded in the morning, but his eloquent demeanor and upright demeanor resembled that of a homeroom teacher. Lu Yong's grades hover around the top 20 in the class, which is not considered weak, but he is not very good at mathematics. He usually claims to be a good student, but once he performed well and made it to the top 10. He threatened to take the exam at Peking University and Tsinghua University, but this morning he was hit by Huang Bing's map cannon and felt ashamed to be classified as a poor student. You will hear someone talking during self-study class, feeling that the responsibility of saving the class falls on you, and cursing and scolding underperforming students to show your difference from them. Qian Kai's reaction was quite calm, ready to ignore him and continue to explain to the third brother. On the other hand, the third brother was a person with personal dignity and was ready to curse at him. Upon seeing Nie Junlin's demeanor, Lu Yong remembered being pulled by Nie Junlin a few days ago and almost getting beaten up. Later, he found out that Nie Junlin's father seemed to be a social figure, and his family background may not be able to suppress him, and he dare not continue to provoke. With a sudden change of momentum, Nie Junlin's momentum in preparing to speak was interrupted, and the fire was focused on Qian Kai. Money is the real thing, right? I heard your father is the school's money director, and he is also an elderly person in the education system. He was transferred to number 1 middle school for you, and he worked hard to bring you to this school. This class, you repay him like this. If you don't want to learn, just transfer to a regular class. Learning a few sentences of French is amazing. If you don't take the college entrance exam, you're not doing your job. Don't stay in this class and affect others, wasting the promotion opportunities of other people who want to learn. Lu Yong spoke louder and louder, with a somewhat teaching and nurturing demeanor in his words. He even felt a little proud of his mature speech. He has been unhappy with Qian Kai for a long time. The incident with Luo Yu and Qian Kai's popularity in French have made him uncomfortable. Therefore, this statement not only points out Qian Kai's background, but also directly praises him, reflecting his extraordinary relationship. He also categorizes Qian Kai's learning of French as not doing his job properly. Qian just started to sneer as he listened. This little brat really hasn't been beaten by society and doesn't even know how much revenge it is to publicly insult his parents. He decided to waste some time teaching him a lesson. Qian Kai directly cursed and said, "You little brat, you talk a lot. You're not my father's grandson. Is he happy to have you involved in the game? Is your uncle, who is the deputy director of the Education Commission, your own father? Are illegitimate children so rampant now? Your position as deputy director is hereditary and irreplaceable, isn't it? One day when he leaves, it's your turn. So, you've started to teach me a lesson in advance. Wow. The class is all fried up, and these children around them have never seen such a famous scene of bringing their father and relatives to criticize since they came to this class. It's too exciting. Even in the top class, there are only 17 or 18-year-old children who watch the excitement, think they curse well, dislike those who make a name for themselves, cover their ears to do exercises, and have various reactions at once. Lu Yong was confused. He thought money was just a soft persimmon, but his language was so fierce that he accurately pointed to his family's relationship. After insulting him, he couldn't accept the trick and could only shout loudly. Class monitor. You see, he's cursing. I'll tell him when Teacher Guo comes later. Class monitor Zhang Fangio looked back and realized that he didn't really want to take care of it, but it was really noisy and he had to speak up. Everyone is classmates, don't curse. Teacher Guo will come soon and everyone will be criticized. Okay, martial artists can't afford it. I'll write to you. Qian Kai sneered and said, those with dirty words are cursing, those without dirty words are not. Was it sad to be scolded by Huang Bing this morning? No, it's not worthy of being scolded by Huang Bing. It's sad, right? I thought you were so good at studying. Did you answer the 23rd question correctly? Is such a strong sense of superiority appropriate? Lu Yong was furious and said, my grades are at least better than yours. They are much better. You, who transferred from number 3 middle school, don't deserve to compare your grades with me. Qian Kai had already returned to his composure, holding hands and leisurely saying, I'm afraid you can't represent the saying of first middle school. Third middle school still has a row of better grades than you. Even if you want to take the exam at Tsinghua University and Peking University, I don't know if it's Xiao Benchen Spring Festival sales that fooled you. As for whether your grades are really better than mine, let's see after the mid-term exam. The class exploded again, and everyone looked curiously at Qian Kai. Brother, you have great eloquence. Seeing Lu Yong stuttering and unable to answer, Qian Kai ignored him and continued to explain to the third person. But even the third person couldn't listen anymore. His face, which was 15 centimeters wide, was about to burst into laughter with a 20-centimeter mouth. Whenever he told him anything, he replied, "Brother, you're so awesome." Lu Yong was completely dumbfounded. In fact, he didn't want to fight back, but he didn't find any logical words to fight back. After all, he didn't inquire about Qian's results in the third high school entrance exam, and those words were only subjective judgments. The results of the in-class tests are usually in the hands of the teacher and are not disclosed. Later, Lu Yong suddenly thought of some rebuttals and found that no one around him paid attention to them. The whole classroom had returned to quiet, and the atmosphere was no longer rushed. The rest of the class regretted and resented the feeling of not performing well. After school, Lu Yong rushed to Nie Junlin and Qian Kai and shouted loudly, pointing at Qian Kai. "I'm waiting to see your grades." After saying that he didn't wait for Qian to reply, he angrily left. After all, Qian Kai and Nie Junlin were fighting each other, and he was afraid of falling into a situation where he couldn't win by scolding or fighting. Money can only smile and shake its head. 17 years old, that's great. What a mess, I've never been beaten before. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Which Cafe? Seeking recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Which Cafe? Seeking recommendation. By the time the third person returned at noon, he was already holding a huge sum of money of over 2,000. The third person said excitedly to Qian. "Talent, your business is really good. When I deliver the goods to the boss to pay my bill, some parents and children come to ask and say they want to buy Blue Cat stationery. These goods are quite scarce, so let's hurry to buy more inventory. How about I also post some money to buy more inventory for them at once? If we all go to buy on weekends, I feel that the 2,000 yuan goods are not enough to sell for a week." Qian Kai frowned. He had recently gone home and specifically watched TV. This time, Blue Cat had just broadcasted cartoons. The advertisement for Blue Cat stationery had not even been aired yet, and it was still far from the time of the fire. This third person couldn't hold his breath, and after thinking about it, he couldn't let his thoughts wander. So he guided him. In this big Z city, there are only a few stationery stores. Old San was taken aback and said, "Definitely not. There are several nearby experimental primary schools." "Yeah, you said those shops saw Blue Cat stationery becoming popular, what would they do?" Qian continued patiently guiding. The third person thought for a moment and said, "Come to us to pick up the goods." The tone is solid and firm, with a hint of old melody monopolizing oil. Qian Kai nodded directly and said, "Big brother, do they know us? Just take the goods, they will look for sources of goods everywhere." The third person had a finished expression on his face, feeling a bit flustered. "What should we do? Isn't your source of goods very hidden?" "The source of the goods is very hidden, and I believe they wouldn't specifically go to Linqing to look for them. But what high-tech is a stationery? Other local factories can't make it. Our quality may be better, but if they want to make money, will they wait for us to come and lay out the goods? When there are more people asking, will the local stationery factories imitate it recklessly? We are distributors, they are manufacturers, and you can't pressure them to lower the price." After Qian finished speaking, he deeply felt that educating the third person was a big job. After speaking, he took out a drink from the box and took a sip. The third person didn't speak and realized that he had made things easier. So Qian continued to explain, "So we can't do this. We need to take down the market first. We can't give them all the goods this time, or even give them less. We need to spread out the goods we bring back and contact more companies to let people know that the goods were sent by us. Let's talk about it in my way. You can't do this alone, so let's ask you to contact your brother and find someone. Secondly, it's about hyping up the goods. Even goods-selling stores need to occasionally ask them to cut off their goods for 2 days, but not for too long to make them feel that the goods are in short supply. In order to be proactive, the third person remained silent and continued to absorb the money. After a while, he turned on the device as if it had been fully charged. He gave a thumbs up to the money and said, "You're really a genius. I'll listen to you in the future." After a while, the third person ran over with a mysterious expression and said to Qian, "You said we need to buy more goods, can we lower the price?" After hearing this money, I put down my pen and said to myself that your child has finally made it to the market. I said solemnly, "That's necessary. This stationery will sell very well in at least the next 1 or 2 years, and the supply will be in short supply. At this time, we are not afraid that the store will not open, but there will definitely be competition. The price we send to the stationery store will get lower and lower. For example, if we can lower the purchase price by 1 yuan at this time, we can also take 2,000 yuan to get backpacks, 133.3 for 15 yuan each, and 142.8 for 14 yuan each. There is a difference of nearly 10 backpacks, and if we send out 35 yuan each, there is a small difference of 200 yuan, which is a huge profit margin. The larger the subsequent purchase volume, the greater the gap, which is also the capital for us to engage in price wars. Okay. I'll hurry up and go, said the third person with a sure expression, punching the table in words. There is already a bold desire to build a commercial empire and embark on the pinnacle of life, to marry by Fume, as if they are discussing a major project. Qian Caixin said that he still had a long nose, but couldn't bear to interrupt and continued reading. The money will be working hard to fill in the gaps and conquer geometry in the coming time. I was originally planning to give up, but in this situation, it seems that if I don't win the mid-term exam, I won't be able to do it. If I don't argue with that whistleblower, even my own father won't be able to explain it. I might as well get an extra point to calculate 1 point. My Chinese has always been pretty good. Even if I haven't learned much, I have received a lot of education from my father who taught Chinese. This is the subject that Qian Kai scored the most when he was a student, and even if he did well, he could get a score of 120. English is also fine, and I have won the fixed grammar and sentence structure in the past few days. There is not much room for improvement in physics, and I will focus on tackling the 3 subjects of chemistry, biology, and mathematics. Qian Kai estimates his current level. If he uses his current logical thinking, studies hard, and has a subject in English to score points, he will definitely be above the main line. However, if he has a subject that is very good, in this battlefield with only 100 points above the main line, he must at least surpass a member of the reinforcement team. The current advantage is that not all high school courses have been completed yet, and at least the first semester of the 3rd year of high school will be completed before all high school courses are completed. Money is already fully mastered, and while others are still learning new content, taking advantage of this time difference to review and reduce error rates, there is still great potential for score improvement. It is because there have been too many classmates coming to harass him in the past 2 days. As he and Lu Yong said, let's see who gets good grades after the exam. During the break time, some students intentionally or unintentionally visited his studies, which made Qian feel a bit frustrated. Lu Yong felt relieved when he saw these things. He had already inquired about Qian Kai's grades at number 3 middle school and thought to himself that he would be pretending to study. It's too late, wait for you. On Friday, the third person took a leave to pick up the goods. The 2 of them arranged to bring the goods and people to the back door of the school, Shaochen Noodle Shop, tomorrow noon to meet. In the afternoon, the homeroom teacher Guo Shihai walked up to the podium before school to inform that the mid-term exam time has been confirmed. Starting next Friday, the exam will be in the form of a college entrance examination, with Chinese, mathematics, English, and science comprehensive. After 2 days of exams, there will be a holiday. 3 days later, the next Tuesday will be a May Day holiday. At this time, May Day is still a 7-day holiday, so there will be no classes on Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays. There will be 9 days off at a time, which can also be considered a historical holiday. The class will be lively for a while because there are many students from the countryside, and many classmates from the same hometown invite each other to come home together. Yang was also very conflicted at this moment. From childhood to adulthood, she has always been a proud, white swan. The love letters she has received can stack up 2 Xinhua dictionaries so thick. She dances well and studies well. In middle school, she was a bright peony in aerospace high school. During the school's cultural performance, her pursuers quietly stuffed snacks into her desk to support a group of girlfriends. She knew that her family would send her to study abroad in the future. In her world, there were not many people in this small city who could go abroad. Apart from the high cost, language was also the biggest constraint. The people around her would have to cut off contact in the future, so she never agreed to anyone's pursuit. Yang likes to go to cafes, listen to concerts, and spend time with Chen Wenjie, whom she considers equally proud of. Although Chen Wenjie does not go abroad, she enjoys foreign reading and can read the original version of Gone with the Wind. But recently, she has been thinking of the boy who transferred to another school. At first, she just found out that he actually understands French and English seems to be good. She guessed that he worked hard to learn these things, and maybe he will go abroad like herself in the future. At this time, Yang was still somewhat naive. She had never thought that Europe and the United States were also separated by half of the world's seawater. She thought that since they both went abroad, there might still be intersections in the future, and they should belong to the same circle of her own. So she sent him a friend-like invitation to meet at her favorite cafe, wanting to share her life and secrets with people in her circle, and also see how equally talented people learn. But he refused himself. He didn't seem to be eager to deal with insiders. The girl who invited her seemed very popular, but he and that girl are not in the same world and will be separated in the future. How could he refuse him because of this? He never took the initiative to invite a boy. She was a bit angry, and the little girl's thoughts began to flood. So, give him one last chance to be friends with herself. Biting his lips, he stood up from his seat and walked straight to Qian Kai. He handed him a rolled-up and elegant note, and then quickly walked out of the classroom. Qian Kai opened it and felt a bit impatient. Book. Are you going to a cafe on the weekend afternoon? Chen Wenjie is also here. Is this girl crazy? Is the coffee shop the location? There may be over a dozen coffee shops in Guangshi district of Sea City, but I quickly followed them out because of the money here. Yang didn't walk fast either. When she went out, she was shy and hurried. As soon as she came out, she slowed down and caught up with the money just a few steps away. She looked at him coming over and felt a bit nervous, afraid that he would refuse again, so she spoke up first. Are you not available? If you're not available, forget it. It's okay, I just wanted to ask you how to learn a foreign language. Even if he casually refused, he wouldn't fall behind, Yang thought. Xian just tapped his forehead, as if he could hear crows chirping. Unfold the note in front of her and say, like educating a child, look at what you're writing. Then, with your hand, click on the 3 words, coffee shop, and say, which coffee shop is this? Yang stared intently, her face suddenly turning red. She took it for granted that she had said, the cafe near the school, which was the invitation location. Suddenly, she realized that it was not appropriate to say so and said softly, it's the residence near the back door of the school, the residence coffee. Qian Kai also had a slight impression upon hearing this. The girl seemed to have told herself about the one near the school, but she forgot about it and felt a bit embarrassed, saying, oh. You mentioned it, that's okay. I'll go there at 2 p.m. on the weekend to see you. I'll treat you. After saying that, Qian Kai said that she still confiscated her book and turned to walk towards the classroom. Yang looked at Qian Kai's back and suddenly felt happy that he remembered what he had said. She smiled and walked out for a while, then turned her hair back and found that the money had disappeared. She held her head and chest high, pinched the backpack strap with her hand, looking proud, and her steps became lighter. I only saw my dad reading the news when I got home. He was very focused and didn't communicate with him. We sat down and watched together for a while. When Qian Zonghua got up to prepare for cooking, he expressed his desire to subscribe to several newspapers. Economic Daily, Financial News, and Business Times. After hearing this, Qian Zonghua did not refuse. He said that understanding the world is a good thing, but learning is the mainstream, and it is important to distinguish priorities. After speaking, he went to cook. At night, the money in the room only writes and draws in a notebook, although it is written haphazardly, mostly with only one keyword and a temporary code that he has created to represent time, but it can also ensure that he can understand it as much as possible. He wants to record as many things he knows that may affect his destiny as possible, leaving behind a memory point and evidence. He is afraid that the longer time goes by, the more blurry those memories will become. In this sea of intertwined memories of past and present lives, the constantly occurring events are actually impacting the memories of past lives. He is afraid that one day he will completely forget some of the things in his past life, and he does not know whether he will not believe that those things in his past life are true along with the changes brought by his butterfly to this world. I might even feel like it was just a dream. After waking up for a long time, I was still very moved. Move. Move. Move, 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 move. Money just thought and lost his thought. His mind twitched and he shook his head with the rhythm. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. 3 Shuns of Fierce Men. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. 3 Shuns of Fierce Men. On Saturday noon, the third person called and both the person and the goods arrived. The third person on the phone seemed a bit uncomfortable, and Qian Kai estimated that he was having difficulty speaking on the phone, so he didn't ask. When he took a taxi to the back door of the school, Qian finally saw the third person in the group next to him, and finally understood. Qian Kai saw Nie Junlin from a distance, not because Lao San stood out in the crowd, but because the person standing next to him was too prickly, very prickly. At this time in 2001, there were not many non-mainstream killers, and if there were, this person would probably be one of the emperors. Their colorful hair was really long and explosive. I don't know if the barber is planning to use him for hand training. He even shaved a pattern on the back of his head near his neck, which looks more like an organ. Like a male. Even if it's money, I can't resist it. This hairstyle is understandable in this era, but this pattern is really excessive. After holding the money for a long time, I couldn't help but ask, "Brother, what's on the back of your head? Why is it like a basket?" Fortunately, the brother didn't understand this authentic northeastern word and didn't get angry either. He explained that it was an upward arrow with an symbol representing top, fashion, and trend on the internet. As a result, his hair has grown and the pointed arrow has become round. Long and round. Qian finally understood why Lao San had an uncontrollable tone on the phone just now. As soon as the money arrived, the third brother left. I guess he was feeling uncomfortable just now and ran to find a place to laugh. The brothers next to him are not unusual. I guess they either know each other or have seen each other before and have become accustomed to it. Qian just asked, it seemed like they hadn't had lunch yet. After inviting everyone to the nearby restaurant for a while, Nie Junlin leisurely came over and said that he had just gone to the restroom. On the way back, he met 2 young girls who asked for directions and could easily find a photo studio. This guy was enthusiastic and took them directly. If someone invited him again, you might even be able to take 2 photos with them before coming back. Qian Kai pulled Nie Junlin outside and asked about the situation with the explosive head, and how this image could sell goods. Nie Junlin said that this is the person his second brother has repeatedly asked him to bring over, named Yang Sanshun. He said that people value loyalty and used to be able to rush to the front in battles and anything, especially skilled in fighting. Now his family is sick, short of money, and unable to find a job. As long as he can earn money and has a lot of energy, as for that hair, just ask him to shave it. Qian Kai thought to himself that this would be useful, and then went back to talk to Yang Sanshun about the hair issue. This hairstyle is really not good to sell, but Yang Sanshun hesitated to shave it. After being coquettish for a while, he finally explained the reason. He had a girlfriend, and the two of them had a couple's head. If he wanted to shave his girlfriend, he would break up with him. Money is so numb to listen to it. The one who killed the Mat Emperor even brought an empress. Suppressing the desire to ask if they had a family, he tried to persuade Yang Sanshun with a soft and hard tone. I heard that your family is old and sick. If you are still a man, you should take on the responsibility you should bear. Your hairstyle, except for going to a hair salon to work, has to be cut everywhere. It's not worth it for an indecent agreement. After finishing the task, he said, I'll leave my hair or no one, you can decide. Yang Sanshun sat there without saying a word and thought for a few minutes. He patted the table and stood up, saying, You advanced me 3 yuan. Nie Junlin handed him 3 yuan, and the person left. It's not easy to arrange without everyone, so I decided to order food first. Unexpectedly, after waiting for about 20 minutes, everyone came back. Yang Sanshun simply shaved an inch. Not to mention, he looked quite handsome, with prominent features and a straight nose, giving off a bit of a handsome soldier brother. Qian Caixin said that this brother's girlfriend asked him to keep such a hairstyle, but he was actually trying to hide a handsome guy. When everyone gathered, they began to arrange their meals and tasks. Apart from Qian Kai Nie Junlin, 5 of them were arranged to go to various counties below, while 2 went to other stationery stores in the city to sell their goods. In order to let them know how to talk to people, Qian took them to 2 stores for on-site teaching. The people were divided into 2 groups, and there were too many people to scare them. On the way to the first stationery store after finishing dinner, something happened. A bag-grabbing person ran over from the crowd, and a woman was shouting to catch a thief in the distance. At this moment, Yang Sanshun's reaction was the fastest, and he leapt out with a jerk. He was so fast that he caught up with the thief within 100 meters. He looked at a nearby pier, and when he stepped on it, he jumped up and kicked the thief's head. However, when he landed, he lost control and fell to the ground with the thief. The thief got up and wanted to run, but was only held down by the money that came rushing over. Qian Kai also looked at him at first glance all the way, this brother is really fierce. Qian Kai was promoted in his previous life for 6.5 years, and worked in the army for 6.5 years. He also practiced in grassroots companies for 6.5 years. His combat skills are good, but his body is still weak in this life. But everyone is about the same age. Even with Yang Sanshun's skill just now, he is not sure if he can beat him with Qian Kai's skills, and his speed is unmatched. With just that 100-meter sprint, it is definitely not a problem to be a sports talent student. The chubby woman from afar also rushed up, exhausted and gasping for help. She wanted to thank them for their help, but when she saw this group of 6 or 7 people, she was afraid that she couldn't bear to thank them. She immediately grabbed the great hero Yang Sanshun and said she wanted to give him money. Sanshun is also an open-minded person. He snatched a fat woman's bag from a thief and returned it to her, saying that you should give her 3 yuan as a running fee. The chubby woman didn't hesitate either. She opened her bag and gave him 5 yuan. Sanshun took it and handed it to Nie Junlin, saying that she had paid you for her haircut. You can give her 2 yuan to change. After finishing speaking, he turned around and left. Qian then secretly said that this brother is good, and this time he has paid for it. He is a talented person. When I took them out of the second store, it had only been half an hour, which was much easier than the first time I had to pay to load the goods myself. Money asked them if they understood, and they all said it was quite simple. Qian then thought about it for a moment, maybe so. Nowadays, many children are carrying this backpack, and their fame should have spread. It's just that toys are still not easy to sell. Only when Experiment 1 and Hangshao were able to sell, did the money carefully think about it and suddenly realize that it was probably a matter of location. I'm a bit taken for granted. Most of the toys sold in stationery stores are bought by students themselves. These toys, which are in the tens or hundreds, may not be affordable for students. Only parents who take their children to buy toys would buy them so expensive, but most parents take their children to toy stores near the park. Qian just thought of this and immediately said, "You can go directly to the toy store in the park, not to the school." After setting the deadline for stocking and visiting the store where one sells their goods every day to check the feedback, Qian agreed to give a 20% profit commission for each person selling the goods, with additional transportation costs. Shun was asked to work hard every day to gather and coordinate with the other 4 people, and an additional salary of 10 yuan per day and additional transportation fees were given. Shun also agreed. After finishing all of this, today's task is considered complete. After that, there should be no need to run on your own. Money finally calmed down and we found a water bar nearby with Nie Junlin. "How much money do you have left in your hand after you finish paying for the goods?" Qian just remembered tomorrow and promised to treat someone to coffee. "I was just about to tell you that when I picked up the goods, I felt like I had taken less. I advanced money and took an extra 500 pieces of goods. When I returned, I laid out 500 pieces of goods for the experimental elementary school stationery store and collected them. I also paid 15 yuan per person for 3 people going to the county town, leaving 205 yuan. This batch of goods can generate a profit of over 5,500 yuan and over 3,000 yuan when sold out. After deducting the 20% commission and salary, it can be sold out and returned to around 4,700 yuan. Nie Junlin took out a small notebook from his bag and kept a dense list of accounts, interspersed with many calculation formulas for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. It can be seen that calculating these accounts is not easy either. Qian just took a glance at the ledger and couldn't understand it for a moment. The writing was too messy, and he couldn't help but frown. "Brother, when the money comes back this time, you can first draw 20 yuan to buy a calculator." Nie Junlin looked down at Qian Kai and said, "Isn't that quite good? Take a look, it's more detailed." Qian Kai slapped the ledger in front of Nie Junlin and pointed to a place. Qian Kai kept pointing at the place and said, "Look at this. 15 times 105, 1500 plus 75 is calculated. As for writing a multiplication formula like doing elementary school homework, why did you even paint it out? Did you miscalculate?" Nie Junlin took the account book and pointed his fingers at the numbers one by one, saying, 15. 5, 5, 5, 20.5, 70.5, 15, 15 plus. "You're really a genius," Nie Junlin said, looking at Qian Kai with surprise. Qian Kai. #*@/. Are you also considered a high school student? Several historical figures flashed through Qian Kai's mind for a moment, including Zhang Fei, Fan Kuai, Cheng Yaojin. I don't know why he thought Nie Junlin would definitely be a person too. "Give me the money in your hand first, I'll be useful tomorrow. Yang Ye and Chen Wenjie asked me to go to the coffee shop." Qian then comforted himself and calmed down. "Damn it, you're only saying this big thing now. I've already arranged to go play CDs with someone tomorrow," Nie Junlin said with regret. "Did I let you go?" Qian rolled his eyes. "What I said was give me the money, I'll go. Didn't you say that?" Nie Junlin's bright and lively big eyes seemed to twinkle with tears. "I'm doing it for your own good, brother. If you're sure you want to go, I'll take you there. Qian couldn't bear the look in his eyes. Nye Junlin said softly, go, I'm going. The next afternoon, Chimu coffee. A man and two women were communicating in English, chatting happily, and there was a background wall next to them that looked particularly like Nye Junlin. Hee, what are you talking about? Nye Junlin became impatient. Qian just turned his head and said, Can you say no in words that I understand? Nye Junlin gritted his teeth a bit, and the two beautiful women were in a state of complete collapse. His mood was now suspended in mid-air by Yang Ye's cute and charming appearance, tied with a string. This is the price you pay for not trust me, Qian said with a disdainful expression. Bang, the wire broke. Nye Junlin stood up abruptly and said, you're so talkative. Qian Kai caught a glimpse of Sanji's bulging fists and dared not repeat them. He accurately translated, they said May Day would invite you out to play. The thread has been tied back, it's tied even tighter. Yang Ye and Chen Wenjie looked at each other with a smile, thinking they were really fun. With a smile that made Mr. Nye's mind flutter, he slowly sat down and covered his mouth with his fists. He cleared his throat with a hum and tried to look like a gentleman. But then he regained his nature as a nouveau riche, called the waiter, held a Chinese list that he could understand, and patted the snacks a bit. Qian Kai coughed and gave a glance, don't be careless, there's no money. Nye Junlin gave a proud look in response and said, please. Chen Wenjie and Yang Ye exchanged a glance, conveying the message. They are all so generous, why not say they know Chinese? Yang Ye blinked and said, okay. For a moment, the language switched to Chinese, and everyone talked happily. End of this chapter.